New identity. His passport, cash, move map. There's a change of clothes in that bag right there. Everything you need to make it to DC undetected. Once you're there, you'll have to inform on me.
Sorry, what?
Tell the truth. You came to Vienna believing you won 2 tickets to the opera. And I attempted to recruit you into assassinating the Chancellor.
That
you
is
refused.
not the truth.
Your life depends on them believing you, Benji. It'll go easier if you tell them what they want to hear.
Ethan, at least tell me what this is all about.
Do you expect me to talk?
Good evening, Mr. Bond. Mr. Bunn. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to review Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, not Rouge Nation. As always, should you or any of your do expect us to talk, force, be caught or killed the Secretary, or disavow any knowledge of your actions, this introduction will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
Very
Yes,
nanny
hello,
state,
welcome.
isn't it? They have to tell us that. They have to tell Ethan that every time. It's like, yes, I know it's going to be disavowed. But fuck.
Every bloody time. Well, you know, he travels the world. He's quite busy between missions, so he might forget from time to time.
Well, to be fair, in 3 they made the exception for Kerry Russell, didn't they? It's like, well, normally we disavow, but on this,
on this occasion.
But you're fit, so no.
But she's a plot device, so.
But yes, she is a plot device. But we'll make an exception. And if all else fails, you've got Eric Bardwin, you know, to disavow you. So
the thing
and he's not going to do that.
The thing that always confuses me is like to level of like this message will self-destruct. Well, is it going to like explode? Or is
How
it
much?
just
How badly is it going to?
Like, do I need to step back, or is it just gonna like just?
You look at dickhead sprinting across the car park, and a little wet fart of a little wet fart of smoke comes out of it. On the
bang in your face.
If you just throw it into the waste paper basket right beside you, and fucking like West London blows up, you've underestimated it somewhat.
Oops.
So they should say something like, "This message will self-destruct really fucking badly."
Well, this will just vanish in a puff of smoke in 5 seconds. They need to give you some kind of clearance, don't they? I think some kind of safety, health and safety warning.
And they exploded quite dramatically. And in like Fallout, it is just like a tiny little puff of smoke.
It just goes. Phew.
Well, I think it's only in. When's the time to explode? In Mission Impossible 2, the sunglasses they exploded.
Yeah,
that's quite a big explosion. He throws them off.
Yeah, in the first one, he just had to light a cigarette to cover up the tiny bit of smoke that came out. You'd be fucked now because you can't smoke on planes.
No, he'd be screwed, definitely.
He'd have had to skydive out of the plane to watch it.
Well, he clings to a plane door, doesn't he, here in not Rouge Nation. Oh, that really annoys me. If there's a film that has Rogue in the title, you know, you're going to get the odd typo, but it's always also.
But it's everyone. It's everyone. It's like
everybody is Rouge.
90% of people write Rouge. Yeah.
We're all looking fabulous, but no, the U goes at the. It's after the G. But at least we all look fabulous, darling.
And that's to expect us to talk policy.
Must look fabulous at all times. Even you.
Even
I don't know who that's pointed at.
Oh, I thought you meant me. Even me. Even you've got to look presentable.
Oh, especially you, Chris, but especially you, Dave.
We had Rouge 1 the following year, didn't we?
We did have Rouge 1, yes. Oh dear. We all went Rouge. I bet the lipstick industry got a big spike out of that one.
Okay, so before we go into it, tell us about the film, Becca.
Yes, this is, as you may have thought, episode 152. That's Chris and Dave and I'm Becca. But yes, we are reviewing Not Rouge.
You can't help yourself, can you, once you start? It's like...
I've got it in big letters here. Not Rouge. Because my dyslexic brain will be like, no, it's not Rouge.
Yeah.
Yes,
that means you've got to yell it.
It could be.
Rogue Nation.
That was a bit, yeah. Rogue, yeah, it could be Rogue. Or Bruges? Bruges Nation, no. Words that sound like Rouge. But no, yes, we are reviewing Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, starring Tom Cruise, Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson, Eric Baldwin, Jeremy Renner, Ving Rhames, and Sean Harris. With score by Joe Kramer, script by the amazing Christopher McQuarrie, and directed by the amazing Christopher McQuarrie. I love him so much.
Don't you wish Matt Damon had been in this as well? Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh my god. That still makes me laugh like 20 years on.
Yeah. I think it's a bit of a knock on the Bond series. This was probably the best spy film of the year, wasn't it?
Yeah, because wasn't this scheduled to have a later release date, wasn't it?
It was going to be Christmas. It was going to be Christmas Day.
Spectre, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, in the United States, it would have come out early November, Spectre, and it probably still would have been hanging around in theaters by the time this came out. But it was brought forward, which is unusual for Mission Impossible, because all the way through the series, with the exception of the first one, we've been talking about films being actually pushed back slightly. This one actually came in. Now, that wasn't what I must stress, and we'll go into the making of it in a little while. But one thing I must stress, it wasn't. I mean, with Wonder Woman, for example, they finished it, they've locked the cut, they've done all the effects. And Patty Jenkins is sat there going, oh, I wish it came out on the original date now. It wasn't that. It wasn't so comfortably they finished, let's bring it forward. That must have been a studio decision based on their slate. Because I found out today they locked the final cut 5 days before the premiere. So they were really, really up against it. They did not. They weren't sat there in smoking jackets all relaxed going, we're finished. This was brought out earlier by Paramount's design. Put it that way.
Yeah, it's like, can you get it ready for this date? Like, okay, well, I guess.
I mean, he even said, and I can't remember. I don't think he actually said. I don't think he said which bit of the film it was. He said, but there was one bit of the film where they had to go back to, for argument's sake, the effects team. It may have been the music, but I think it was the effects team, and give notes on something they needed changed, and there wasn't even time to check the changes. They just had to trust when they turned up to the premiere what they asked for was correct. And indeed it was, he says. I think from the hours I've spent listening to McQuarrie's interview, I think I trust him to be honest. So I think they got the film they wanted, but they were very, very much up against it.
So what was the thing that was like at the film? Is it the film's ending? Because I think that was the thing that was the last thing to shoot, more or less.
He talked about it in such depth that everything was subject to change. Christopher McQuarrie's very big on, so is Tom Cruise, very big on testing films. And said, he's not a slave to it. He's not, we get a note and we follow it slavishly. But we're very respectful of the process. And when you get notes, particularly from audiences, it's telling you something. So, for example, the hanging off the side of the plane went everywhere in that film. Originally, they were going to end the film with a big plane sequence, and what he was describing was effectively the end of Fast Six. A runway that's ridiculously long and chasing the plane with cars and set at night and all the rest. When they eventually cut what they cut, eventually there was a cut where it was in effectively the credits at the end. They effectively sort of teed it up, started the credits, and then you saw him hanging off the plane. So things like that. Yep, definitely there were versions of the script where Solomon Lane died. In fact, for most of the production, Solomon Lane was supposed to die. Mm-hmm. And what you've got is a director and producer stroke leading man who are just very in tune with the process and what feels right. So when something doesn't feel right, they talk about it and try something else. And, they felt the film was telling them that Lane should survive. Lane should be beaten, not killed. He said Lane is not screaming out to be killed in the same way that Owen Davian was.
No, he's a completely different brand of villain, I think, isn't he?
But I think Owen Davian as well sort of starts the film with a bit of an atrocity. Do you know what I mean? And it goes on from there, and you want the guy dead, whereas it's not quite the same with Sean Harris. But yeah, I mean, there were problems with that. There were late changes to the score because early feedback said the film appeared to have effectively multiple endings. And Tom Cruise said, it was Tom Cruise that pointed out, it's not leave every frame as it is, but the music from when they get to Blenheim Palace should be effectively one piece. and that will take that away. And they said they literally went up like 10 points overnight, just changing the music.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I think he was spot on there for sure.
Yeah. So
Just go show
lots
how
and
much
lots-
Cruise knows about film and and what works.
Yeah, no, he's all over it. He's all over the on it like a car bonnet. He's in every aspect. He knows what's going on.
The respect Macquarie has for Cruise as a filmmaker is palpable.
Definitely.
And when you think about it, they worked together on Edge of Tomorrow. He wrote on that. They worked together
That was a
on
good film.
4. They worked together on Jack Reacher, and they've now worked together on 2 Mission Impossible.
Oh yeah, Valkyrie as well. Yep.
2 Mission Impossible films with another 2 to come, and Top Gun.
A very successful partnership.
They wouldn't be working together if it didn't work for them as well.
No, if they weren't on the same page.
There's only so much money you need. I don't think you'd put up with a relationship that the end result was good, but you didn't enjoy it. So
No, yeah, they obviously, there's a lot, as you say, working in favour for both of them, and they get a lot out of the partnership as well.
I mean, in terms of the making of it, there's an awful lot as we go through it, that things change and ideas come up and all the rest of it. At the outset, I've probably got a lot less to say about the genesis of the film, because in previous weeks I've talked about different directors being attached and different, versions of the script, and the date being pushed back a year and then another year and so on. And none of that really happened here. Here, Drew Pearce was hired to write it. Drew Pearce wrote Iron Man 3. And he's actually
heard that name before.
He's just written Hobbs and Shaw as well.
That'll be fun. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, and that version of the script got effectively changed on the fly by Macquarie. But there's no more story than talking to you maybe as we go along about things that changed with that. But yeah, Macquarie was attached. Macquarie did the film. There's very little story other than that in terms of like any kind of development hell at the outset of this. He was hired a couple of years before it, and he produced it. So budget-wise, it's about the same as Mission Impossible 3. So they're still holding the sort of inflation of the costs of these films down. That changes a bit next week. Fallout is a bit more expensive. Also, the running time. This is the first one to come in a bit shorter, only a minute, but there's been an inflation. The first one was like an hour. What was it? 110 minutes.
Yeah, they've generally gotten a little bit longer, haven't they?
They have. The second one was just over 2 hours. The third one was, I think, 132 minutes. This is 131, and again, next week we get a bit longer. But obviously, we'll talk about that next week. So I haven't got an awful lot to say pre-production, with the exception of he was asked how his ideas changed from Drew Pearce's, and he said Drew Pearce was going to, the original version of the script was going to have the original head of IMF from the TV series. We know the version that's got Peter Graves in it, because he was in more of it. So the Peter Graves character, Jim Phelps. Well, the original series was a guy called Dan Briggs. The character was called Dan Briggs, played by a guy called Stephen Hill. And Stephen Hill was a very religious man and couldn't work a certain day of the week. I think it was Saturday. I think he was Jewish. And it was starting to affect the TV schedule so much that they would have episodes where he would literally give out the mission and then the excuse as to why he wouldn't be joining them on it. So they ended up having to replace him, and obviously he was replaced with Peter Graves, who is the known version from
He's
the
now
TV
iconic
series.
in the role.
Absolutely. So that was the original version of it. Other things that occur to me, we go through it, but eventually Macquarie got hold of it, started changing it, and he just said the script became, he said it read, there was a lot of stuff in the original version that played like fan service, and he just said, I learnt from Jack Reacher, where he put loads of detail in for fans of the book that no one noticed, no one cared, and those that did care, it kind of got in the way. Bond producers take note when it comes to things like fan service, so it was a bit self-referential. So as they went through the process, this became a very Christopher McQuarrie / Tom Cruise product. And that's really all I've got to say in the lead up to the film. But in terms of the actual film itself, did you all see it on release? What are your memories of when it came out?
Yeah, I watched it probably like opening. I don't know if it was opening day, but probably in the opening week. I saw it at least twice, and I think one of my main takeaways, thing I really really enjoyed, got out of it was like, was getting a Bond film that we hadn't gotten for a while, basically. I mean, it's almost kind of embarrassing because like there's just so much elements of Bond in here that was like all the stuff for the opera. I just thought, I miss this kind of shit. When's Daniel Craig doing this? And I think particularly we had Spectre coming up as well, so it wasn't quite as
well, we still at this stage.
So
good or better at the end of the year. Yeah,
exactly. Plus, also you got something like the Syndicate, which is kind of like what Spectre should be. Especially if you do it in a up to date kind of way. It's just like this shadowy organisation that seems to sort of like just get around. I mean, it's basically what Quantum was, but just less like.
But better.
Well, Quantum's a bit more like, we're sneaking in with politicians and do deals and things like that and work behind the scenes that way. These are just like a shadowy group that just sort of
shadowy terrorist organisation.
Yeah, kind of thing that just sort of no one knows exists. So like a lot more dangerous, but something like that. Even down to like the look of like the members of the Syndicate. They're like particularly like in the opera scene, you got like Tom Cruise fights like a really tall guy with blonde hair. It's like, he looks very European. It's just like, well, that's straight from Bond. That just looks just different.
Well, when he burst
like
in
a
on
Bond
Simon
villain.
Pegg, that could have been Stamper.
Yeah, or something like that. So it looks straight something like from that, and I was just like, Rebecca Ferguson looks like a Bond girl. Got a Bond girl name, Elsa Faust. But yeah, she clearly stand out. It's like she was one of the things. She moves really well. She really for someone who I hadn't seen before previously. She really left a genuine great impression. And yeah, it just felt very very slick. The only thing I would say was it did feel like it was just missing something. Like it just felt like it was missing like another big set piece or something, which I think probably is down to the rush time frame they had. I think by the time you get to the end film, the ending they have is fine. I think it works with essentially it's just a bit of a chase and a shootout. But I get the feeling that it might have been heading in a bit more of a bigger set piece, possibly, or maybe the opening set piece was meant to be bigger.
The film's plenty long enough, but it almost felt like it could use another act.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean. It just felt like it was just short, like a big action scene. You got Tom Cruise on the plane, and I think one of the film's weakest spot is that first opening scene. Not the stunt itself, not the shot and the work that went into that, but everything else around that. Everything just felt like a bit perfunctory and a bit kind of like, oh well, that'll do. But the stunt itself, fine. But everything else just felt like it's a bit too short-lived, and it just, we'll get into it when we talk about the film sequentially, because it just felt very much like, oh, we got Simon Pegg in a field, and
when it went into the credits, I was like, oh, is that it? I mean, I've just seen an extraordinary stunt, and yet I still thought, is that it?
Yeah.
But we'll very kind of short, sharp.
Yeah, there were countless. He had the same problem with Fallout. Countless different ideas as to where you put the title sequence. And we'll come into that because there were countless changes as to where that would go, but we'll come on to that because I'm almost about to start commenting on the quality, and I don't want to because I want to hear from you guys first. But it's
it could go anywhere really, isn't it? It's one that I kind of feel that it's a really gripping pre-title scene, but I think just the fact that it's cut so sharply and it goes into the credits is a real. It takes me out of the film, for example. But it's one of those things where they kind of thought, oh well, we'll just shove it here. But that's one of the very few haphazard moments about this film. Otherwise, I adore it. But yeah, I kind of feel that I was a little bit like, oh, they just shoved it in there, There's nowhere else for it to go. Let's just put it here.
But yeah,
I'm
I
sure
mean,
that wasn't the case. I'm sure that wasn't the case at all.
As for the rest of the film, I mean, I paid a lot of attention to the score tonight because I always remember really liking the score to the next film, and I really like the title sequence music from the next
That's
film.
really smart.
And Charlie, who's a long-term collaborator with us, has always praised Joe Kramer's score. And I'm listening to it, and there's bits in the film where I'm thinking, yeah, that's a bit Bond. There's a little bit Living Daylights there and stuff like that. And they keep calling back to Nessun Dorma, but in a very, very understated way, because otherwise it would be rather cliched. And
you can hear it a lot in when they get to not straight to HQ in Blenheim Palace.
Well, in the best Bond scores, they use the Bond theme without using the Bond theme. They reorchestrate it and build it into like something fresh. And he was doing that with the Mission Impossible theme. Time and time again, he was using it, and he was using it to be whimsical in places. You know, Ilsa says to Tom, you know, and this is truly impossible. And there's just a slight underscoring of the Mission Impossible theme, but it doesn't play as like the Mission Impossible.
It's not in your
version.
face, is it?
It's not the Mission Impossible version of dan dan dan. It's just it's quite understated.
No,
so
there's
really
a similar
liked all
scene as
that.
well. I think when
I've just envisioned Ben Still looking straight to camera. I was like, well, looks like this mission just got
impossible.
It's impossible.
Isn't there a scene as well where I think Ilsa's just reviving Tom Cruise's character, and Benji kind of appears. So I knew that was gonna be difficult, but not Mission and he goes to say impossible, and then something happens, and there's a little bit of the theme weaved in the background.
Yeah.
Woven in even.
They go to Ilsa's house, and obviously she gets out of the water in like a swimming costume, but then she gets
that's
dressed.
the undress moment.
But when she gets dressed into normal everyday clothes, it's like 70s Bond girl. That could be like Lois Chiles.
Yes, no, that's true actually. But that scene, like where they go to visit her, in Casablanca. Sorry, this is a very glow-popping film. Pay attention. It reminds me of Diamonds. A little bit of Diamonds of Forever.
What, you expect Bambi and Thumper to come jumping out?
Just a little bit, just the pool scene as well. And there's also a scene in it's one of the Wolverine movies, the one where he goes to Japan. There is a scene very much like that, and they do the whole I didn't even know there was a pool down there, line, which again is a very Diamonds reference, but it just reminded me of those two films.
What I like, it captured a Bond film without aping a Bond film, and I think the problem I've got is if I don't see absolute Bond tropes, when people say, "Oh, that's like a Bond film," I go, "Well, no, it isn't." And I go, "Well, no,
it kind of is, but it isn't."
If you showed me a 10 or 15 minutes of this film, I'd never heard of Tom Cruise. No one referred to him as Ethan, and you told me James Bond was now being played by an American, I'd go, "Yeah, it's a Bond film." Even down to the score. So
I could probably say like this film and certainly Fallout as well, because I remember seeing. Well, we'll talk about it when we're discussing Fallout. It's literally for me. Bond stunts by numbers, like that's been done in that film, that's been done in that film, that's been done in that film. We've seen that before.
I agree with that. I do think they do. They do the
but
sort
not
of
on
things,
purpose. Not on purpose. It's still
they do
very
the sort of thing Bond would do in that he does car-based stuff and that sort of thing.
All the stunts we've seen before.
No, we haven't. But we'll get into it. We'll get into it. I don't see.
No, I still
to be
really
honest,
enjoy it.
the stunt work in this film as pisses on anything Bond has done since.
Oh
the
yeah,
Craig
definitely.
film.
No, the stunts. Mission Impossible's got to the point now where it's known worldwide, for its amazing stunt work. And Tom really
doesn't look like a Bond film because it's got
not at all.
It's got too grey and grimy a colour palette, whereas this one is probably the brightest Mission Impossible film.
This is very shiny. This is the shiniest of the lot, I think.
And it's got a mixture. The other thing is they split the team up deliberately, so it feels more expensive than it is because you've got Tom in like, I don't know, let's say Morocco, right? And then it will cut back to like Alec Baldwin and Jeremy Renner in like Washington, and it feels like the film is like trotting the globe, and it'll cut between them in like heavy coats, and then to Casablanca with him in quite bright clothing, and so it's just got a really nice varied color palette. It's very, very bright. So yeah, this isn't copying Bond, and Bond shouldn't copy this, but at the same time, it's got bits in it that you think this just feels a bit prestige in places, and scenes at an opera that is just so much more lavishly designed than the equivalent in Quantum of Solace, even though the Quantum of Solace opera scene's very good. And the stunt work is better than we've had in Bond for a long time. She's better than most Bond girls we've had since Vesper. And so I just look at this and just go, and then you bring in the Syndicate, and it could, you expect them to say, we are the special executive for, counterintelligence, terrorism, revenge, and extortion.
Special.
Because the thing about Spectre is,
Can I create an acronym for Syndicate?
Spectre have got a degree of randomness about them. They're just like some films. They're just trying to fuck shit up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's a little bit of that about the Syndicate. You don't, for large portions of this film, we don't even know what they want. They're just like, well, we're just going to assassinate that guy, and we're just going to fuck that up, and we're going to cause mayhem there. And the only time I've seen that in Bond recently with either Spectre or Quantum is when they caused terror in South Africa because of the Nine Eyes thing. And I just thought, yeah, that's Spectre. They've just gone in behind the scenes and caused mayhem. But the other thing they do differently from the way Spectre's been, it strikes me that with a Spectre-type organisation, you've got two ways to build them. You either build them from the inside out or the outside in. So you either start with an organisation and then slowly reveal more until you get to its lead, which is Blofeld, which is the way the 60s Bond series did it. Or you've got start with Blofeld and build out from that. So you start building out to what is it he's actually controlling. And this is what this one does. We start with sort of Solomon Lane effectively, and then we realise the Syndicate is something he's trying to build more than anything else. Whereas Spectre, the film Spectre, did neither. It did nothing. It just went, we've got the rights, let's put it on the screen. And there was no plan. Here, there seems to be a bit of a plan. The funny thing is, they went into the film determined not to use the Syndicate. It was just meant to be a tease at the end of the last film. But, yeah, so I've got the highest of high respects with the way they've gone about this. And, it's a bit like Bourne a few years before. It's not going to outlast last Bond. It's probably not going to outgross Bond. But in terms of capturing the mood, the zeitgeist, and providing clear entertainment that really makes everyone walks out really happy. A bit like Bourne in the very early 2000s. This series is absolutely fucking handing James Bond his lunch at the moment.
I mean, it's a bit sad, isn't it? I mean, I remember when Mission Impossible 2 came out, and I remember Jonathan Ross, and he gave it really bad review in a kind of like mocking way, as if to say, he kind of wants to be the American James Bond in a way. Oh, it will never happen. And it's just funny going back to like now, and you have Bond with arguably its best actor, and it's best
leading man for a long time, yeah.
And it's just really like, underserving. Underserving the audience, and you have this film. We came out just before what should be one of the biggest Bond films yet, reintroducing Spectre, and it gave us more Bond, and it's not even remotely a Bond film. No. I mean, like the stuff with like the Syndicate, like what they really nailed more about in comparison to Spectre. It's just how well organised that stuff in the opera. It's like not only did they not have like, oh, we're going to assassinate. You've got like the assassin for him just in case she didn't follow through, and the thing to kill her and whatever. And if all goes to pot, well, it doesn't matter, it's a car bomb. So it's planned meticulously all the way through. That assassination will go ahead no matter what.
Whereas the Spectre
everything's meticulously. Yeah, everything is.
The Spectre equivalent was retconning a load of stuff that he could not possibly have planned.
Yeah.
Because the card game just wouldn't have happened, and there's, he could not. Yeah, there were so many things in that film, and again, I've just on the point of Spectre, I don't dislike it as much as a lot of people dislike it. I've always admitted that I got a bit carried away when it first came out. That's absolutely true, but all of these things are like fair criticisms that they just went, Spectre, brilliant, let's put it on the screen. It's like, what's your plan?
Yeah.
What's your plan? And the other thing I really like about this series is the balance of tone. That again, detractors will say, well, Ethan's not a character. Well, he is. We've had 4 films.
How can you argue that? I don't understand.
We've had 4 films now, building out the world, building out the IMF, thinking each time as to how to rebalance stuff, because there was a fear at one point the IMF would effectively almost be Ethan's antagonists all the way through, so they had to rebalance that. There's been a growing thing around his wife. There's been a growing thing around Ilsa. And yet the Bond equivalent seems to be to constantly navel gaze over his place in the world. And it goes back to Chris's comment when Spectre came out, and he likened it to Doctor Who and said, it's the same mentality that brings back the DB5 every time. It's a series falling in love with itself. So we're going to navel gaze about our legacy and where we are and where we're going, instead of just thinking, what's the best 2 hours of entertainment we can provide? And the two aren't mutually exclusive. The Fast franchise has proved this in a slightly lower IQ way, admittedly. But the Fast franchise lands all its themes of family and loyalty and stuff like that. The two aren't mutually exclusive, and this series just balances it really, really well. And when you think it started with a film that I know a lot of people like but had zero character development, it really has come a long way.
Yeah, the trajectory is a lot easier to see, and it's done it in far better fashion as well, I'm ashamed to say.
So as for opening thoughts for me, I just remember coming out of it, if I'm honest, and just thinking it's not quite as good as Ghost Protocol. And I think a lot of that is the Burj Khalifa. I think sometimes a set piece, if it's that good, can absolutely change or not change your opinion, but almost unbalance your opinion versus the other films. Actually, it's really similar. They're really similar films. They're paced in quite a few they're paced very similarly. I think there's a better leading lady in this than in the last film. I think there's some intrigue there. I think they have put a different wrinkle on being disavowed than in the last film. I do think, though, that the Burj Khalifa was that good, and even Macquarie says, he says that about Brad Bird. He went, sod it, damn him, he's given me the Burj Khalifa. I can't match that.
That was a difficult nut to crack.
Difficult one to match, I just remember really enjoying it. Some of the opera stuff went on a little bit too long, and by that I mean the fist fight. The fist fight with the big hulking guy went on too long, and I remember a couple of times watching it going, isn't this done yet? But I just really, really enjoyed it, and I just think Ilsa was a masterstroke, and we'll talk about that as we go through it. What I like is it's back to this sort of, you don't know who to trust. Do you trust Ilsa? Does she trust the people she's working for? Can Sean Harris trust her? And I like that when it doesn't get too labyrinthine and disappear up its own arse and just give us flavours of that. That's really strong. I like it's great when the team are together and they're all trying to get into a building, but this film actually expanded its scale by splitting the team up. I thought that was very wise as well. I thought Alec Baldwin actually added a dimension because, again, it's a bit. I'm going to have this complaint when we get to the John Wick films, that the sort of body that John Wick works for, you get to a point where through those films where you go, why would he ever fucking work for them? They're fucking assholes, right? And there's a danger of that with the IMF. That by the time we got to this film, it's like he's constantly disavowed, unsupported and everything else. And I think putting that wrinkle in of them being on trial effectively, and Alec Baldwin being pulled round to their point of view, very similarly to Mallory in Skyfall, but with a completely different feel to it, gave it something. And I just thought he was very good in it as well. There was just nice little changes of pace and location constantly, whereas Ghost Protocol had them all in the same place all the time. So when you had a long section in Dubai, all you were seeing was Dubai, whereas we do cut back and forth to different things here. I do think the three films are of a piece. My recollection is I like Fallout more than this, and on balance I think I probably enjoyed last week's film more than this, but I like where this film was going. It was a film that referenced the last one. Now the previous film had referenced 3, but that was late additions. I mean, the whole stuff of changing Jeremy Renner to he was protecting Julia, I heard Macquarie say that today on an old recording, that only came about 10 weeks into a 17-week shoot. But here they're straight away being put on trial for what happened at the Kremlin. And so there is a through line now that they've got a series and a continuity, but the films are standing alone. So this is absolutely 100% how you do franchise filmmaking. So what about you, Chris?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, the main takeaways for me was I thought this was giving me the Bond film, which I haven't got since at the time Spectre, and then since Spectre came, since Skyfall, and then since Spectre came out, it kind of felt, he didn't really deliver that. I mean, it was kind of also like a wise move to kind of pull this forward to kind of get ahead of Spectre as well, because I think the two might have clashed, though. I think this one might have just sort of, as you say, Dave, taken its lunch and pissed on it. I mean, I don't know what it might have made it worse. You might have just gone like Spectre might have come out of all the crevasse of being Daniel Craig and Blofeld being back, and then Mission Impossible comes along. So nope, this is how you do it, son. I think it's much more. It's a very much more grounded film than last week, which I think is probably deliberate. The action is a lot more fisty fighty, runny, jumpy, shooty, rather than like let's do a big set piece, which is absolutely fine. I mean, there's a few knife fights and as Dave says,
you can't just up the stakes every single time. You've just got to put new wrinkles on things,
and really good chase scene as well, and a few actually really good missions as well. It's actually quite a diverse set of should we say impossible missions. I mean, the one that impressed me the most was actually the one in the PM. I thought that mission was inspired, even though it was not like a spectacle stunt based one or anything like that. It was sort of how it played out, but in terms of the boldness and how it all comes together, it kind of like, well, that's inspired thinking. But other than that, as I said, the main criticism, I just felt like it was just missing just an extra set piece that stuck in the head. That was the only thing. I just felt like maybe possibly the faster shoot that it had to deliver to get the release date on time. Maybe like rush things a bit too much. Though that said, the ending does actually make sense, particularly with Solomon Lane. Notice they keep referencing, because at the beginning of the film, he has Tom Cruise in a box and gasses him, and he, there's reference to him like, I'm gonna put you in a box or something, or words to that effect that are kind of glitter through the film. And then he finally actually does, and he does exactly the same thing. So that kind of matched perfectly. So I think they made the right decision of not killing him, and they've actually made it sense from the actual film itself.
He did say they panicked slightly when they saw Spectre, and like the lead of a very similar organisation wasn't killed, and they were like, "Oh Christ!" But later in the year, admittedly, but it would have been in production around the same time, and it was like, "Oh Christ!" All right, but I mean, we keep saying it's a bit like Bond. It is its own thing. This feels like a Mission Impossible film. It's just that with the globe-trotting element, the getting into things, the double-crossing and spy element, and all the rest of it, and the action, then it's going to stomp on some of Bond's territory, and it's just doing it better.
Just the general spy things. I mean, going to an opera and foiling assassination attempts, that's just a spy-esque thing anyway, and you're going to watch that, and you're going to think of Bond. But everything's just done so slickly that you just think, God, why hasn't Craig done this yet? Do you know what I mean?
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it was a nice little reminisce, right? A nice little love letter to that kind of element or that kind of trope, or however you see it. It was nice to have, and I think it's really well directed. The cast are great. I think how they brought in both Luther and Simon Pegg actually worked well. Actually, in the script, because you had Benji off helping Ethan, and then you had Brent needing help with Luther. So that all seemed to work well, and the two kind of like work well together. So
it's how you crack the nut of historic characters with the same skill set. We're going to get to that with the Fast franchise as well, because there are definitely two characters in those films now that have the exact same skill set, and now you're going to keep them going forward. And how do you not have them stepping on each other's toes?
Because they're lovers. Well, they fancy each other.
I'm not sure Benji and Luther as lovers would be the way to
No, not here, but in Faster.
They
But
come a piece from the same pod almost, aren't they?
But here, the very first sequence, Benji needs some help, and he actually uses Luther, who's in Malaysia.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, you got the same skill set, so help me improve mine. So
Yeah, they can work symbiotically.
it works fine. So the balance of the crew is probably a bit better than the last film, and Rebecca Ferguson is absolutely like the key new element, and probably the wisest addition in the series to date. Really,
The two standout roles here definitely are Rebecca Ferguson, she's amazing, and Sean Harris. I just think without them, the film would be so much weaker. I just think they're positive boons for the series. And obviously, we had Sean Harris kind of introduced early towards the end of the last film, and then next week, we kind of really see more. But no, he's a fantastic actor. It's a shame that we're kind of talking a little bit about having a sort of like differences in villains, for example, but having Owen Davian, the sort of that type of actor. It's such a shame that his role was kind of cut short. I would like to see more, more from him, but obviously, sadly, he's no longer with us. But then to have an actor of Sean Harris's caliber, and also Rebecca Ferguson as well, and also to kind of explode onto our screens. I think was it 2015, 2016? She was in The White Queen. Fantastic. Someone of her talents. I think it's a real coup to have those two.
The only other thing
in
I've
the
ever
series.
seen her in outside of this series is she was in The Greatest Showman. I've not seen
definitely.
anything else outside of this.
No, definitely check out her filmography as well.
Black International.
We'll ignore that. But
there is a look about her that's very malleable, because you can put her in ball gowns and everything else, and you can put her in action sequences, and it works equally well.
I
And
don't want to
that's
put her
not,
into
that's
kind of
not
like a
true.
Swedish pigeonhole, but she does remind me a little bit of Ingrid Bergman. She's got like a really Nordic kind of quality to her
That's deliberate. We'll come
in
to
terms
that.
of her timeless beauty.
In fact, we'll talk about that now. When they were going to cast the role, they had someone else in mind, Macquarie, and Macquarie said that he went and talked to the marketing department. He's quite open about this. He said because when he was on Jack Reacher, he never had anything to do with them, and it was a very difficult film to market in some ways. And he just went to them and just said, and they, what is it you would need from me? And they went through all the old sort of campaigns and showed him the sort of things that worked. And in conversations with them, it sort of reconceived the Ilsa character. And then the original version of the Ilsa character was a bit more of a troublemaker. He described it as, you go into like on a mission and you've got to go in silently, and she goes in and immediately makes a load of noise and shoots someone without a gun, without a silencer, not without a gun, without a silencer.
How does that happen?
Yeah, and it's like, well, what do we do now? And he just said that was really broad. It was funny in the odd scene, but it was really broad. But he said we started looking at actresses and tapes and all the rest of it, and when we got to Rebecca Ferguson, Tom Cruise went, "Oh my God, that's Ingrid Bergman." And apparently his first sort of cinematic crush was Ingrid Bergman. And she's called Ingrid Bergman, plays the character of Ilsa in Casablanca. It's totally, totally deliberate. This is this film casting as close to Ingrid Bergman as you can get now.
Yes, I agree, Dave. There is a Casablanca thread running through this film, definitely. But yeah, it was. I've been a bit embarrassed. I've heard like snippets of the Macquarie interview. It is 3 hours long, so I need to kind of break it up. As I say, not very recent, but I need to break it up into kind of more manageable chunks, really. But it's one of the few in-depth interviews that he did, and again, he spoke kind of very candidly about the history of the film, in terms of its production history, and in collaboration with crews as well. Off topic, this isn't a bad thing, but I'd just like to note, obviously, the Chinese involvement in this film. It's becoming, Chinese production becoming a big thing on the world stage. A lot of there's 2 Chinese production companies involved in the making of this film. I'm not going to sort of, I'm just here to note it, really. I think that's quite interesting, in the way that kind of film production is going. There's often like different versions of films made specifically tailored for the Chinese market, or might appear different on the Chinese market. I just think it's quite interesting in the way that kind of film production's going, really. So I just thought it's interesting to highlight that.
Doesn't really have any effect here in that I didn't know.
No, it doesn't. But I think it is quite interesting.
When you go and watch either the 4th Transformers film, which has a clear hour at the end of the film that shouldn't be there because of the Chinese money.
Yeah,
and then you go and watch
Iron Man films as well.
Yeah, but that was just some extra footage in their cut, so it didn't affect us. But the Meg as well, they've cast some Chinese actors in that, which I have no problem with in principle, but they've cast a Chinese character in there that Jason Statham has 0 chemistry with.
Yeah.
and things like that. So when it starts affecting the end product, it can be a problem. But I don't really see that it is here.
No, it definitely has a problem here, but I just think it's interesting, just in terms of that's kind of like the way things are going, I think. But no, I just purely from interest, from a financial point of view, I just think it's interesting.
Yeah. Although, as we say, they are keeping the budget.
And Alibaba are basically, they're quite on a similar standing to like Amazon, for example, and that type of company. So it can't really be ignored.
No, and I would expect such a powerful country with a growing audience to have more and more influence. But like I say, it's how much it changes what's on the screen. And there's a couple of films I've seen in the last 4 or 5 years where it ruined the film, frankly, or at least damaged it. Here, I don't know that it's affected the end product.
Here I think it's fine. It doesn't affect it too
Macquarie
much.
was answerable to Paramount, so all the notes were coming from either J.J. Abrams, the Paramount execs, or internally, Tom Cruise would effectively give him notes as well.
Yeah, he'd be doing most of the notes.
Yeah, absolutely. Shall we discuss this film sequentially, folks?
Let's do it.
Okay, so Chris, tell us about the opening scene, because you've got some minor issues with it, if not stunt.
It's just over too soon. I think the whole setup, because at the beginning we see, we get like a bit of like the little subtleties of the Mission Impossible theme, like very grandesque like sort of version of it, and
they've put some grandeur in it throughout this film. The scale is being added by some very small details like that.
Dun 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 dun. Sort of thing. But yeah, you have Benji. He's like all in camouflage. He's on his computer, and there's basically some nerve gas missiles on a plane. And you have Jeremy Renner's character, Brent. No, not David Brent. Brent, yeah.
I've kind of fused Mission Impossible and The Office shit.
I have to remember, like, I can't remember if it was the premiere or the chance, or like it was a German politician called Willy Brandt back in the day.
Yeah.
And that surname, that's what it reminds me of. You grew up in the 80s and 90s when?
Yeah.
They look nothing alike, but it's just the surname.
Yeah.
Or like Helga Brandt, for example. From the News Twice.
My thoughts go there first.
Or David Brent.
Yeah, just imagine him in there going like, package on the brain. He's like, yes, I know. Just do my job.
So has your wife left you yet? No, she has. I forgot that.
Anyway, sorry, it just made me laugh.
Finchy, bloody good MIF agent.
Yeah.
Oh, it's IMS agent. Sorry, I always get that mixed up because it's weird. Because it's Mission Impossible, and it's Impossible Mission.
Not monetary fund.
While I've got you on the phone, who's the president of Cuba? Frey Bentos, got it.
Frey Bentos, right? Oh dear.
So yeah. Anyway, we get introduced to our characters. We have Benji, he's there trying to like dismantle the. He seems basically there on his own. He asks where Ethan is. He's like, oh, he's gone dark or something. So we have no real like input into what's actually really happening.
Yeah,
which I think is
we're saving him to run out heroically.
Yeah,
where's Ethan? Just behind that mound over there.
Where's Ethan? He's gone dark. I don't know. So we don't know why. We don't know the lead up to this. So we basically just got Benji, who's now asked Luther for assistance because he needs to get control of a satellite to basically disable the.
Yeah, they need to hack a Russian satellite to do it.
And you have Jeremy Brent. Jeremy Brent.
That's somebody else together.
Oh dear. Anyway,
character.
I've got Jeremy Renner's character, who's.
So I'm kind of a Brent first, a Jeremy second, and a Mission Impossible star third.
This is the sort of thing that I do. It's quite funny. He's
basically in the at the office home, sort of shouting orders, basically, and they're trying to sort of stop this shipment from going through, and they run
from taking off. The plane mustn't take off,
and so they try to do it, but obviously Benji can't accessibly do it, and then Tom Cruise just pops out from nowhere. And
literally, where's he come from?
Yeah, I think it's because it's done in a field in the middle of the day. It does not look that cinematic, and you have that shot of Tom Cruise running, and it almost looks like it's part of a sketch show. Like you see, like Tom Cruise just jog amongst the field somewhere.
It's the way he comes steaming past the camera to start with.
Yeah, and
all I could think of was Red Dwarf again. The bit where, like, Lister goes, change of plan, leg it!
It does look a little bit like that.
Yeah, the camera's the opposite angle, but it's the exact same principle. Yeah. Apparently, well, do we need to say this at this stage? He did it for real. The other thing, Macquarie said, when the original conception of the film, they were talking to the studio quite a lot about this, because it was going to be near the end of the film. And he said, if you've just got the crew and the plane, you can do that. He said, but once you start having it that the bad guy is chasing them, he said, immediately you've got cars involved. He said, you've got more of the crew there, more cast and crew there. He said, and also, because you've got to shoot it at different angles, you then have to build sections of the plane and sections of the wing. And I can't remember if he said it would have made $10 or $20 million to the difference to the budget just to do that. And when they eventually conceived of it this way, there was a big argument with the company that make the A400 plane as well, because they wanted to put a big sign on it saying A400 and stuff like that. Eventually, it was Macquarie who said, let's just put it at the start. He said, it's a stunt. And he says that. He said, it's not a sequence, it's a stunt. He said, let's just put it at the start of the film. And, I mean, as a stunt, it works really well. The only problem is it's a very difficult stunt to in any way tease. Because if you think of the Burj Khalifa, all you got to do is show a single shot of him up there somewhere and you'll go, fuck me, what's he up to in this film? You can't tease this without showing him on the side of the plane, which they did in all the trailers, which actually fucking gives away the money shot anyway.
Yeah, and the problem is, with the Burj Khalifa bit in Dubai, there's... You know what's leading to this, so you know what he has to do. So you have the background here. We just jump straight in, and then we kind of, okay, well, there's some stuff on a plane. They need to stop it. They can't do it. Ethan showed up, jumped on a plane, and then before we know it, credits, and it's just
because he's in the plane, and you think, oh right, they're coming back to hunt him. What now?
Yeah,
and it's immediately, well, I'll just open a parachute and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, there could have been something more to that even. Do you know what I mean? They're like, but yeah, it just feels...
What disappointed me was it followed 4, which doesn't start with a stunt like this, but it starts with an intriguing sequence where... Do you remember me saying last week, when you had the prison scene, all I kept thinking of was questions? You know, I'd watch it and I'd go, what's that about? And why is that? And why is he there? And what's that happening? So it just teases a film really well as being a self-contained little bit. Here I didn't really care, because it just immediately telegraphed it's got nothing to do with anything. We're just starting with an action sequence. The other thing was, I really liked that they lit the fuse in situ in the last film, and they didn't do it here. And they were planning to. We'll talk about it in the next scene, but the scene at the record store was where the fuse was meant to be lit. And it is the problem of trying to make films in an agile way where you're constantly moving things around. And he just said, perfect place to light the fuse, but in the flow of the film it doesn't work. It takes too long to get there, and it's too small a sequence, and that bit's meant to be post-credits really, or post-titles anyway. But we'll come... I will just tell you now, it was supposed to be Solomon Lane. I like the idea, but I don't like the idea. Because he was going to blow up the record store by lighting a match and just throwing it behind him, and that was or lighting a fuse with that. But again, the bad guy just blowing the place up, walking away with a match is a bit cliched in itself. But I do like the idea of transitioning into titles organically like that, and it's a shame they haven't really done it yet. It's an okay sequence. It's an incredible stunt, but it is just a stunt, really.
And yeah, that's kind of part of the problem. It just leads nowhere. That being said, I do really like the actual title bit though. The use of shots of teasers of the film that's to come is really effective because it gives you enough quick shots, quick cool shots. I'm just gonna go, oh, what's that? What's that bit?
What's
that bit looks cool.
like?
Oh, do you know what I mean? It doesn't give you any context to ruin anything, but you just kind of like
you'll get a quick shot of Ilsa walking up the stairs in the ball gown.
Yeah.
And then you'll cut to like
you might see you with the gun or that, and then you'll see Benji with like a thing in his eye.
And a couple of times it cuts into them on 3 beats, like the first film. They ruined it in the last film. They just lingered on shots too long and gave a couple of key details away. One particularly, we should not have known that missile was definitely going to be fired.
Yeah, that was a spoiler alert.
Here we get nothing. Absolutely nothing. But you get little establishing shots as well. Like when they go to Vienna, there's definitely establishing a shot of the opera house in the title sequence. So it shows you that there's going to be dress up, if you like. There's going to be like women in ball gowns, like Bond style. You see there's going to be action. You see there's going to be locations. It's really good. And it keeps cutting back to like the fuse burning down as well.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of the TV series. There's a bit of the first one cutting in on the characters in 3 beats. There's a bit of the fourth one, but just cut much more cleverly. What he actually said about this, Macquarie, is he said they put it out to companies to come up with ideas for this. And he said that he couldn't decide between 2, so they used both. So hence the end credit has another title sequence. And it's because he basically put the preferred one at the front, but another one he really loved at the end.
Yeah, I get that makes sense. I do prefer this one though, because this one just has such a visceral energy to it.
The one at the end feels a bit more retro somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, it works. It's really, really good. And then what did we come out to? Did we come out to London or did we come out to?
Yeah, we come straight to London. He's Tom Cruise at a record shop.
Yeah, and again, this was Tom Cruise's idea because he's got a massive vinyl collection. He's a huge fan of vinyl records. Apparently has a massive collection, and he was very involved in designing the store as well. He was very much, I want to design the sort of store everyone would want to go to.
Isn't he a fan of everything? Doesn't he have like, I've got a huge collection of this? Or like...
Yeah. You can imagine it started on a pig farm, and it's like Tom Cruise has the best pig farm in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever he does, it's going to be top shelf, isn't it?
Yeah. And we started at a patisserie. Tom Cruise has a fantastic patisserie in his house.
He makes an excellent chocolate.
I think he's got a really good stainless steel delicatessen.
Delicatessen.
Yeah. He got it off Sean Harris's predecessor at one of the forerunners of the Syndicate.
Oh dear. You guys, please do your Sean Harris impressions. We did them off air and it just had me in stitches. Please share that with the listeners again.
Pressure there.
We'll do it naturally.
Maybe. We'll see.
We'll see.
See how it goes.
Well, yeah.
They were really good. Really good.
No, Dave was more Richard Attenborough, though, so that was like...
Yeah, that was called David Attenborough.
Yeah, sorry.
Chris went really creepy, and I effectively narrated a fucking nature video or something. Never mind.
And they both were very, very good and amazing.
Mine was good if you were looking for an impression of somebody else entirely. So it was a good impression, but not of Sean Harris.
Not the one I was expecting.
And this is a Tom Cruise. He hunts in the wild, doing ridiculous things.
Admittedly, I was narrating porn, but we do talk about some weird shit off here.
Yeah, true.
Anyway.
Yeah, so... yes.
narrates porn as David Attenborough.
Yeah, so you get a sense of, like, legendary status, because the girl says, like, oh, it's really you. All those stories can't be true, when he gives a kind of, like, a look and go... Maybe.
Yeah, it's like, it's me! Hooray!
It's me, yes!
But Ethan, where have you been?
Where haven't I been?
Yeah. I love the fact it's all coded language, isn't it? He's asking for, like, a record, and she's, like, suggesting things, and he ends up, I can't remember what he goes for now. Is it Miles Davis or something?
Yeah, something like that.
All got all kinds of jazz, aren't there?
Goes into a real old-timey listening booth, sort of 1960s style.
Soundproof.
which you do actually see if you look carefully. You see Sean Harris sat in the one next door, but it's blinking.
Yeah, it's one of those things you blink and you miss it.
And then he plays the record, and it's not IMF.
It sounds like it might be, but then it's like, because we are the Syndicate.
I can't believe it's not IMF.
IMF.
Yeah.
That is going back a bit.
I can't believe. Yeah, it's not the IMF. It's the I can't believe.
I can't believe it's not the IMF.
Yes, it's the Special Executive for Counterintelligence.
I was still trying to work out what the Syndicate acronym would be. I'll think of one.
All right, good luck with that.
It's something beginning with the letter Y that isn't the obvious one.
I'm just thinking of bottom live. It'll be Oxford United.
We'll think of something.
Yeah, it'll be really tortured. But yeah, so this Syndicate, who basically are like, their whole message is effectively "ha ha," isn't it?
It is basically, ha, we did it before you.
It's like, yeah, but so because you are not catching, because we are the Syndicate. Your mission is to die or something like that.
Yeah.
Or it's basically a warning, and you see, Ethan. Ethan sees Sean Harris's character, who, I do wonder about Sean Harris, because he never gets like the nice kind of sweater roles, does he? He never seems as that nice, warm, cuddly guy. He always gets typecast as.
What you mean? Weirdos. He wasn't like Harry when Harry met Sally or something.
Yeah. Can you imagine doing those? He should have
played the Hugh Grant character in Notting Hill, something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. You could do an impression of him admitting to Andy McDowell in 4 Weddings and a Funeral that he'd only had 9 lovers, I'm sure.
If I could quote 9 Weddings, but I can't remember any line.
All right, fair enough.
The only line I can quote is the Andy McDowell line, so that's.
Okay, so yeah, basically he
is it raining? I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, and then Sean Harris,
as he looks lovely into Hugh Grant's eyes. Anyway,
he'd been better in that than Andy McDowell.
Oh, true, but
yeah. Fair comment. So yeah, he shoots the shop attendant, who is presumably IMF, or at least allied to IMF in some way. Yeah. And Tom Cruise is gassed.
Yeah, trapped.
Now,
and,
unlike the Playboys, he doesn't wake up to find like he's got to fight some lady mud wrestlers or something, because that's what I thought of. I thought of going, oh no, it's poisonous gas.
But were you looking to do that much? You're more like,
Yeah. There are a few bits in this film that would work as parody, even though I think the film's really good. But
yeah.
So yeah, he's gassed, and
then we go to the MIF trial. We get to find out that it gets mentioned because Jeremy Renner does mention the fact that
he has said on the phone earlier, we're under investigation.
Yeah.
And so they're now at a hearing where you've got this new guy, Alan Hundley, played by Alec Baldwin.
Eric.
There you go. And sorry. That's all right. I was teeing you in to say that. And he's basically saying
that actor ever to live.
From the Film Actors Guild.
The Film Actors Guild. Oh, just go and watch Team America. If you're not getting any of these references, listeners, where have you been?
So yeah, he's basically arguing they're just their methods, that they're completely out of control. Kind of a little bit like Angela Bassett in the next film, just making them sound like they're a bit of a joke, really, with all the masks, the rest of it. And Jeremy Renner, because of confidentiality, can't confirm or deny anything anyway. But we are shown that the Kremlin was flattened. What else are we shown? We're shown something else from the last film.
San Francisco, where the
tower the rocket hit the side of that build, clipped the side of that build. Yeah.
Basically showing that they're too reckless. There's too it was too close to call kind of thing.
Yeah. And actually, the sort of hearing, the people running the hearing are saying, well, your results seem more about luck than anything else. Yeah. So,
it's not going well. So.
Oh, I love the fact he says to him something like, this is a bit that's wryly funny, where he says to him, watch out because you'll be shut, by tomorrow you'll be shut down. or by tomorrow Ethan will be captured, or something like that. And then it cuts to 6 months later.
Yeah. So we cut to Ethan and well, he's all tied up, and we get first introduced to Elsa.
Actually, yeah, we do. We have that before, don't we? We cut back to because that cuts forward to 6 months later after he says that. Sorry. Yeah, he's tied up, basically stood up with his hands up, tied up like Attack of the Clones style. Good job. Yeah. And there's a big thing about her shoes in this. Macquarie does talk about it. He references her shoes, and she's always taking her shoes off and stuff. But yeah, we see Ilsa, who looks like she's about to torture him or something.
And she has like a rabbit's foot kind of keychain, and yeah, she they have this big other henchman coming in. They start punching him, but she kind of gives Ethan like a bit of a knowing look to sort of say on my marks, and she sort of knocks out the main guy, then throws him the keys, and then there's a fight ensues.
Yeah, Ilsa immediately, I mean, I don't know how much of this is stunt work and stuff, but immediately she moves extremely well.
Yeah.
Because half the time Ethan's out of commission in this. He can't reach his hands together to unlock himself to start with anyway.
But he does that amazing thing of, fucking hell, obviously it's come true, so he must have really did that. But he sort of
he would have.
He starts flexing his body to kind of just sort of jump up the pole. I think.
Yeah, he's got amazing kind of flexibility, hasn't he?
Fuck me. But yeah, there's a big fight scene. She allows Ethan to escape while maintaining. Well, I'm not really sort of explaining why she did what she did, but she lets him go, and says, "You better get out of here. You the story is you killed these men, and you got away." Kind of thing. I managed to get out alive. Blah blah blah. And then
he runs down the corridor, and they can't even shoot. They can't even hit him down that narrow corridor.
That narrow straight corridor, no.
Yeah, but he gets out, and then we do cut back to Hundy saying to Renault, you're gonna be shut down, and we will capture Ethan, and it will be as soon as tomorrow, sort of thing. Cuts forward to 6 months later.
Yeah,
nope, still going.
And
so 6 months later, it's established after a couple of minutes that he's in Paris.
Yeah, Ethan is hunted. Get it?
Yeah, like what he did there.
Yeah, so he basically sort of distracts the CIA to where he actually really is, don't they? They think he's somewhere, and really
he kind of draws them to the wrong room.
Yeah.
But he's been spending all that time getting intel from Benji on the Syndicate, because he's got a ton of details, and he's stayed ahead of all their leads on him. And also, Benji is being treated. This is what I mean about you got to balance the IMF, because there comes a point where it's like, well, why would you work for them? He's working there, and he's being put through lie detector tests every week, because they're assuming he's aiding Ethan somehow, which he is, but he is passing the lie detector test as well, which is another reminder that, for being comic relief, the Benji character is actually competent, very competent.
Yeah, he holds his own, alongside the big guns.
I mean, to be fair, we as an audience at first, because we don't know he's helping Ethan at this point, we almost kind of believe it. He almost believes that he does feel like he's just been abandoned. Like he does feel like he's like, well, I'm disappointed because he's just kind of left me in the shit.
But obviously we do find out in time. But he spends all his day playing Halo.
Yeah.
I think it's quite interesting, when we see him again, he's disbound. Also, the first time we met him, he's disbound, had the beard, looked a bit scruffy. And we had a bit of time seeing him in the field where his look completely changed. And here again, we see him disbound with a beard, obviously still quite fit, physically.
IMF is shut down, though, so he's been reassigned to the CIA, basically.
Well, this is it, definitely. But I think it's quite interesting how he kind of goes back. So it's kind of not like a backward step, but I just think it's an interesting callback. I think throughout this film, there are little moments where, especially through Benji, I'm not quite sure why it's through Benji. Macquarie might know more about that. But there's lots of callbacks to the previous films, and they're kind of made, Benji sort of calls them out. But I think that's quite interesting here, that he kind of, obviously he's been reassigned to CIA, and he's desk-bound once again. But he has the kind of the same look that he had, when we first met him, which I think is interesting. But he still kind of, he still gives it to the man, 100%.
Absolutely. Where do we go from there?
Well,
Ethan's escape, I'm assuming.
yeah, Benji gets some opera tickets. And so he's a bit disgruntled with his new job, so he's like, okay, fucking
I'm gonna go to the opera
every day. Goes, fuck it, and you think he's
He's
getting
won
it right.
tickets to Turandot in Vienna.
in Vienna. Yes, let's go.
And at no point, this was addressed in the Macquarie interview, there's no real answer to it, but at no point does he think, hang on a minute, I didn't enter this competition.
I was gonna say, if you suddenly received competition tickets, I'd be like, I don't remember entering this one.
Yeah. But he heads to Vienna anyway, because there's a lead on Solomon Lane there.
Yes.
And all the other members of Quantum.
It's effectively Quantum.
Tosca isn't for everyone, so...
I mean, yeah, Solomon Lane is literally there, like
seen it
Mr.
before
White,
in a Bond film?
looking at his phone, isn't he? Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally. It's like, why people should find a better place to meet.
Nice subtle uses of tech here, though, because he gets there and picks up like a program or something. When he opens it, it's an electronic book, and to do all the things he needs to do.
It's kind of like smart people almost, isn't it? It's very interesting, like e-ink and that sort of thing as well. A few years obviously before.
And he's basically watching the crowd to try and find the relevant people who are involved in Syndicate, because Tom Cruise as he worked out by this point that they're basically all dead or disavowed agents, supposedly dead agents.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what they're working out, aren't they, at this point?
Because the guy he fights is supposedly dead. He was dead 3 years ago. So yeah, that's what that's.
They're kind of
about.
gathering intel on this. They're looking for this guy.
And
hold
the
on a minute.
Chancellor of Austria is there, and so he's the target.
Yes.
Now, the choice of this particular opera is purely that when they were location scouting, Macquarie went there himself to have a look at it, and that particular opera was playing at that time, and he was just like tickled and a bit taken by the idea of an Italian opera set in China playing in Austria. It was purely that. He just thought, that's really cool. So
it's really international.
He went with that. Simple as that. That was the sole reason for that choice. Not that it's Nessun Dorma or anything like that.
Not that it was his last. It was incomplete because he completed it before he died. No, it didn't complete it before he died.
Yeah. So, what happens in this sequence then, largely? What's the...
Basically the same as Quantum. No, not really.
Yeah,
well,
the trouble with Quantum is they put it on such a cold-looking set. It was horrible.
No, I think it's quite interesting though. I think I was trying to read a bit more into it because I'm not familiar. Obviously, I'm familiar with Nessun Dorma, and also it was a big sporting theme as well in the 90s. And I think it was number 2 in the chart. I think when the Three Tenors released their CD. But yeah, I just try to think. But no, I think sort of you can read into the themes of it as well, because obviously with Tosca you've got themes of kind of like religion and corruption as well. But here it's kind of, you've got a theme of identity as well, and the fact that the two kind of central lovers in the opera, they don't know each other's names. So I think I was kind of messaging Dave. I said, you know more about it than me. You're more cultured than I am, definitely. And it's like obviously the idea of identity as well. So. Well, I'm not too familiar with opera, unfortunately.
And just imagine being less cultured than me.
You're quite cultured.
Like, fucking hell.
You're quite cultured, Dave. To me, that opera is prohibitively expensive, and it's not something I've ever done, unfortunately.
I've never done it. Don't worry.
No, but no, I just kind of did a bit of reading, but it's interesting to like the themes of identity as well, considering. Well, we kind of know the identity.
There's a commentary to do when we're done with Bond.
What, you're on to?
We'll just do a commentary on it.
Oh dear, but it's so offensive.
Anyway, they're just trying to stop the Chancellor being shot, and then they notice that basically he eventually works out that there are several people trying to kill him.
Yeah, there's other people. There's like another guy at the lighting rig. There's Elsa, and he's like, shit. Well, what do I do?
And then there's not Stamper in the sound booth.
Yeah, not Stamper. Yeah. Again.
And so he thinks on his feet and just sort of shoots him in the shoulder, kind of.
Yeah, it's just he hasn't got a choice. He can't stop two of them. Before that, he has a fist fight. I'm not going to say that much about the fist fight because it just goes on too long. Way too long.
The scene is a bit too long. I would agree with you there, Dave.
It didn't matter. I think because you got other stuff going on in between, like it cuts between that. So I think, I don't think it matters. I think it
started off looking like it was going to be really inventive because Benji accidentally hit something to start with and raised the platform.
Yeah.
I think it's lighting rigs that Cruz is stood on. So you think, well, they're going to constantly be like moved just as they're fighting each other and things like that, and then it doesn't really play out like that. It's not bad. I just thought it was a little bit long. That's all.
Yeah, but I think you got your nice scene. You got the opera going on in the background. Obviously, we heard a bit Nessun dorma. When we saw Elsa before.
Because they're basically shown in the music where they've got to shoot him. They've got to shoot him on that final crescendo.
No, we just got little things like sort of like the music instrument disguised as a weapon, like stuff like that. We haven't
it's like a flute or something.
Yeah.
One of them's like, I think one's got a flute, and someone else got a trumpet or something like that. I don't know. Can't remember now, but yeah.
But yeah, just that sort of like cool little element that you sort of again we don't see that much anymore.
No, that's true actually.
Yeah, it's I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more for. I thought the music was good, not just the opera stuff, but the way the score sort of seeds bits of it in, and it actually moves some of the music from the opera around sort of deliberately to sort of match what they're trying to do in the scene and so on.
Yeah, we see it threaded through the film later on, or we hear it later on.
Yeah, it does work very, very well, but I found it much better after the bullet was fired, and he's got to get like Ilsa out of there and things like that. And honestly, I was trying to place the music. My first thought was the Living Daylights, but I didn't have time to go to the Living Daylights score to see if I was accurate with that. There is something from Bond in the score here, and I cannot tell you what that was. But, where they basically have to... And again, him sort of grabbing hold of her and jumping off the side of the building or tethered. Very like the start as the world is not enough or something like that. Apparently, when they filmed that, he landed and said to her something like "Welcome to Mission" or something like that. I'm sure she said that on like Graham Norton or something like that. I enjoyed it all, but like as I say, as action sequences, I've yet to, apart from a tiny tease, I've yet to have anything that interests me as much as the last film, just generally. Yeah. But it's coming, and there's something intriguing about this Ilsa character. She's saved his life. And now she looks to be sort of working for the bad guys, and we don't know what that's about at this stage.
We know, I think we can kind of gather that she has her own agenda, but what quite that is, we don't know. Obviously, she's a bit sympathetic, like she's allowing Ethan to live. Yeah,
that's always going to harm chemistry to a degree, because she's obviously not going to show the same warmth to Ethan. She is just this enigmatic figure.
Can't really get too close, can they?
No, absolutely. So it's not the same dynamic as Julia, nor is it meant to be.
I think that's quite interesting when like she does all the things, and then obviously in the previous scene to what we're discussing now, he's like, "I've never met you," or he's like, "Oh, we haven't met," and obviously she's kind of got this. I was gonna say like a hold over him, but not really. But yeah, she's obviously letting him live, saving his life, being sympathetic towards him, and kind of like, hold on, I don't know you, but actually they do. ...
He recognises her. I like the fact that he drew pictures of her and Lane. And
that's amazing. I think he's obviously got that photographic memory, isn't it? Well, as a field agent, highly trained, he must have that memory. I love
the picture of Lane is like quite perfunctory but fairly accurate, and the picture of her is like bad really luck.
Detailed.
It is bad luck you loved her. It really is. Like that is a drawing of someone you've got an enormous crush on.
Yeah, I think he might fancy it. So we don't know.
But was it as good as the one he drew in his hand to last week?
I don't know. He gets that into his film so much.
Does it depend on what his canvas is, maybe?
In Vanilla Sky, he did like he did like a drawing of Penelope Cruz at one point. I don't know if that's just something Tom Cruise is into. Never thought of that before. Yeah.
Is it him drawing it, or is it an artist comes in?
Oh, it's Tom Cruise. He does everything. He probably
no, he does it all himself, doesn't he?
He probably went to like 6 years of art classes to prepare for that scene.
Well, doesn't surprise me that he did.
You know what he's like.
Yeah, he does it all. He does the best portraits.
Yeah. So they get out, but the Chancellor gets away. He shot the Chancellor in the shoulder. The Chancellor is injured. They get him out of there, but then the car's blown up. So the Chancellor's dead anyway, and we've worked out Ethan is there. So once again, it's just worsening things for a disavowed agent. That Alan Hunley is believing is actually just the Syndicate is a figment of his imagination in order to keep the IMF relevant, basically to give them an enemy. Which reminds me of 3 a little bit, because I always felt that's what Billy Crudup was doing. He was just trying to give them a reason for being.
Yeah.
So yeah, Brent goes and contacts Luther next, doesn't he?
Yeah. So where are we now? Yeah. So
it's basically, can you help me find Ethan before they find Ethan, because they're going to kill Ethan. Simple as that.
So so basically Elsa explains the Syndicate, basically a bit more about the Syndicate. You have Baldwin connects Ethan with what's happening in the opera. So Ethan was at the opera at the same time when X got killed. Now this could be circumstantial, but to us, that's evidence to say that he's involved in this.
Yeah.
And so we have.
But again, he's not being unreasonable. They've deliberately not made this character a Boone Hiss guy, have they? Very wisely, because they're going to reuse him, obviously.
Yeah. So I mean, you can definitely sort of from his perspective, you would think that was a bit, dodgy, should we say? But so Ethan tries to sort of send Benji. So okay, right, you did your job. Now go back for. But Benji does.
He demands to stay, but he almost launches into a speech, and Ethan's immediately all right.
he's like we gives this kind of and that's that. He's like,
yeah,
all right.
Fair enough. Brent calls in Luther basically to find him.
Yeah,
and that's where we get the whole thing around the drawings. And he's just said he knows her. He knows her. She's the key. We need to find her.
He trusts her and whatnot, and we and they follow and Elsa. Sorry, Ethan follows Elsa to Casablanca. Yeah,
she's basically. Yeah, before she leaves, she gives him this little thing from her hair, doesn't she? And it's got a little USB in it.
It's like you've got everything you need to find me.
Yeah, and it's basically she's in Morocco.
Yeah.
So they head there, and Tom Cruise wears some nice summery clothing.
And does some nice sightseeing while Simon Pegg looks all touristy.
Yeah. Where do we go first? He finds her house, doesn't he?
Yeah, he just knocks straight on. She's there practicing holding her breath.
Yeah. I know. And Lois Charles answers.
Yeah.
No.
So
she gets out of the water all Bond girl style.
Yeah.
Not particularly Ursula Andress, but it's just got the feel of a Bond girl.
You can just hear Barry's skull just rise up as soon as she comes out the water, can't you?
And they're like, rather tick-tock, woof,
smashing,
toot toot. Yes. But yeah, she
woof.
She obviously they obviously have a big sort of exposition scene now where it's all explained what they've got to do, and she's let Solomon lay down twice because she's working for British intelligence anyway, and she outlines that basically there is a list of all of the people involved in the syndicate, and that's when we get to the next we build up to the next set piece of the film, really.
Where we get this sort of it's well, it'd be difficult, it's impossible.
They've got to get in to get this stuff, but this was all in the making of the film. The first idea was one thing and it got added to, and eventually it became, right, if we need Tom to do that stunt, then it needs to be Benji that's going in there, and so on. And again, I like it when they do things like this, when they come out with stuff that genuinely seems impossible. It's a bit Ocean's 11 that way. They've got to go through several layers of sort of technology, and you've got to have a proper voice print, and you've got to have, and they use gait analysis, so he's even got to have the walk of the guy he's imitating. There was a big there were a lot more in the original scripts. There were a lot more sort of false face gags, masks and he felt for Quarry that they'd been overused in the previous films, and he said that basically we've got to work out what the over-under is on it. How many times can you realistically use that device? And he came up with the idea that it's twice. Once to introduce what it is, and then once to use it, and not more than that. And they actually cut a lot of sort of Benji using this, and actually had to put other things into the film to sort of placate him, really, because he was a bit disappointed to lose that stuff, apparently, Simon Pegg. But this is now going to involve Tom Cruise, and the idea behind this stunt as well is, he said, we genuinely do have to have a sequence that is impossible. And they do, because Ethan dies during this sequence, effectively.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like Simon Pegg comedic timing, going like, what? You only got to hold your breath for 2 minutes.
3 minutes, you can do that.
You can do that. And Tom Cruise has that look of like, okay, I guess. So again, you have also back in the old CIA base, you have Luther trying to find who else there is, or where else there is, and Jeremy
that
Renner
comes out a little bit later as he sort of gets onto the road later. They're there, but to start with,
the gag is pretty funny. Where he's like, "Oh, so how long will it take? Not long." Oh no, he asked him like, "How long will it take?" Found it.
yeah.
It's like, "Oh, okay. Well, how long? Can you do it? Yeah, of course I can. Okay, how long will it take? I've done it." Yeah, it's so underplayed. It's brilliant.
Yeah. So yeah, they need to find where it is. She's the key, but she's going to help them get into this facility, to get into this underwater little area where he's got to change a card key in order to swap in Benji's details effectively, so Benji can go through the gate analysis to steal the sort of key that's got all the information about the Syndicate on it. That's all they're trying to do here. And now this sequence again, 10 days in a tank filming this. Just commitment. I don't know how long he can hold his breath, but I know he got up to a fairly high number at one point.
It's I mean, you think at some point. I mean, I know the mission is to go like without anything, but
you
think they would have come up with some sort of non-metal gas tank of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know
just a feather basket full of air.
Just a big goldfish ball over your head, just like, you know.
Again,
I mean, that'll do you.
Here. We're not replaying the gag from the previous film that like nothing's working, but we are playing like a complete lack of support, so they don't really have much. So I mean, they're almost pushing it with what they do have. So yeah, this underwater sequence where he changes the key. Again, I think I still had sort of separation anxiety from the Burj Khalifa sequence, because I remember when I first saw this, just nothing was impressing me quite as much.
Because you haven't got the visual, like, fuck me, that's high, do you?
That's what it is. I think we get this from the Bond series. I don't think underwater is fantastically exciting, full stop. So it doesn't work as well as it. Well, they've never done anything like this in Bond, to be fair.
No.
But I just use. Yeah, but there was nothing.
Someone never dies.
Well, you can keep naming Bond films. They haven't done anything like this in Bond.
We've actually never seen anything like this before.
Underwater in Bond is just him
swimming around.
And
this is. Well, it's quite, you know, as a kind of plot device as well. It's quite unique as well. Because it's very high tech. It's very dangerous, and we see he nearly dies basically. It's one of these, you know, one of these moments I remember seeing this at the cinema, and literally, to quote Tarantino again, I bought the seat, but I was using literally the very edge of it. I was almost on the other seat in front of me, thinking, "Oh my god, this is so tense."
Whatever reason, I don't know about you, Chris, it didn't really do it for me.
Yeah, I kind of like in between both, really. I mean, there is always an element of underwater sequences that make me zone out, but this did have an element of, alright, come on, you're taking too long, oh shit. Plus you got that with, combat with Simon Pegg's character doing what he needs to do, but with just things just going wrong, you know, when the things start working in the tank, then when it shouldn't do, it just the
moment before he gets
Ethan's
the card in and Simon is due to walk through Benji, that moment is the bit that's tense, but I just prefer the stuff on land that follows.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I think that's just personal taste, to be honest.
No, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely more of the speed chase scene, a lot more my speed. But we're getting to that. So yeah, so Elsa dives in and saves him and resuscitates
Well, what
him.
I find, she resuscitates him and then steals what they've gone in to take in the first place.
Yeah.
I love all that.
Just when you think, oh, she's on their side.
Yeah, I do enjoy all that. So the film's got me. It's got my interest. But obviously, we're about to go into like almost a Fallout standard load of like road stuff. It reminds me of Fallout quite a lot. We go from cars to bikes and all the rest of it. And Ethan is still not quite with it because he died moments before.
Yeah.
So, he's like, but you were dead a minute ago. And he's like, what are you talking about? It's like, is he with it? And the sequence in the car is great. It's probably one of my favourite bits of the film.
Yeah, so he jumps in. Elsa gets tracked down by the Syndicate saying, "You coming with us?" And she instantly sort of just bolts it. So Syndicate chasing Elsa, and Ethan's chasing after Elsa, who
and fighting off Syndicate people that are now chasing after Elsa because she gets the jump on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get and also you have Jeremy Renner and Luther
have arrived because they've worked out where they are.
So they're on the lookout. So you have this big car chase that ends in a huge crash, and then they
backwards. I just thought it's a bit like the Fast franchise. Can they have the car on? Can they have the car on fire as well? What are they doing?
Yeah,
it's a really visceral stunt though.
Yeah, definitely. And
then he's straight onto a bike. You think you were dead a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah, you just had a massive car crash, and now you're just jumping on a bike without a helmet. Very.
That's always deliberate, so you can tell it's him.
I know.
They talk about that a lot. I mean, they were joking away about what's next, like a rattlesnake down the trousers, and he said, "Well, if I said that to Tom, his first question would be." How do you know it's my trousers? How do you know it's me? He goes straight into like practicalities, and he came up with a couple of examples, and he said, well, it just becomes a stunt then because you can't see it's him. There was an idea where it was a guy who did it. He said it's a Red Bull stunt. You got this guy doing a stunt with a helmet on. You don't know it's him. So it's all thought through. But yeah, anytime he's on a bike, he's never wearing a helmet, and that's why.
Yeah.
He's very keen that the audience don't feel cheated. Because the other thing he said, because he said a lot of people think it's ego. He said particularly early in the film where he had like no top on and stuff, and he said Tom Cruise would very much prefer to act with his shirt on. Believe me, he said, but sometimes it's just what's right for the scene or how the character gets there, and it's the same with the no helmet. It's not look what I'm doing. It's you can be assured this is me.
Oh yeah, I mean I get that from just from a storytelling perspective, not rather than like a spectacle. It's just you have to know where who your leading man is and where he is, and when everyone's wearing a helmet, you don't know who or what everyone is at any one time. So if you know your leading man, you know that's him.
Yeah.
So it's just from I understand it from even just from a storytelling point of view.
It genuinely becomes, if you can't tell it's me, what's the point in even doing it?
Yeah.
Because then it's just a stunt and it can be anyone.
Yeah.
So, and then you've got no connection to the character, and that's what Macquarie said. It's about connection to the character. If you don't know who that is, why would you care?
Yeah.
So, I get it, but it goes into the bike bit. The car is probably my favourite bit of the sequence. The bike bit's been done better in other things, but
it's very fast and very.
It's very fast. I can't believe the speed he's going at, and literally, Vespa style, she sort of turns up in the road right in front of him.
Yeah.
Not on the floor in the same way, but yeah. It's is there much more to say about this action sequence? She basically gets away with it, and he's on the floor, sort of moderately injured.
just dusted off a little bit, and then.
Well, he's clearly had a bad day, but he's all right to carry.
I think for everything that he goes through, he comes off quite well in this film. Like the other previous ones, we've seen him kind of beaten up, bruised, bones broken, things like that. But I think this film, considering everything that he goes through, he comes off kind of, a few scratches here and there. But
I don't know about Becca. His shirt is rather ruined afterwards, so.
Yeah, her shirt is a bit damaged. She has to go to the tailor's, buy a new one.
Well, you think there's an 8-week time gap at the end of the time jump at the end of the fourth film, and at the end of Fallout, he's in hospital, field hospital, quite badly hurt. So yeah, this film he actually gets off a little bit lighter considering he just died.
Yeah, and then the rest of the team are back at the bar, and it turns out Benji made a copy.
But there's nothing on it. Or
No,
is there nothing on
no,
it?
there's
There's nothing on the original.
No, there's
nothing on the original.
nothing on Elsa. So I think what it terms is he for whatever reason just gave her like a blank one, or made her believe there was a blank one.
Right.
Because,
okay.
But it does turn out later there's nothing on it.
Does she go and meet her boss at this stage? British intelligence.
Yes.
Just by the Thames.
Yes, because she's
and she wants out.
Yeah.
And now she's not British. We must stress that because he said she's nationless. And of course, the actress is Swedish.
She's the rogue nation in the title. Obviously, IMF are essentially they're all rogue nations.
The
all
Syndicate is the rogue nation of the title.
Yeah, definitely. But I think she's stateless.
Yeah.
IMF are also essentially stateless, kind of, even though they come under the umbrella towards the end.
It's worth pointing out they haven't cast a Swede as a Brit. She's not British.
No. I think because she's got that internationality about her, she can go anywhere with anyone for any occasion. She's very much of the world rather than belonging to a particular.
I think doesn't she have British parents or something? She has some connection with Britain though. She is I think she was raised in Sweden.
That I can't remember, but yeah, he makes a point of saying that she'll be stateless if she doesn't play ball. Yeah.
So basically, gets disowned.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
But yeah, she's still involved, and he's sending her back in. Basically, she wants extracting from the hole. She's been deep cover, which Ethan spotted immediately. But she's been doing this for British intelligence.
Yeah, because she wants to get out, and then the team look at the ledger and find out like what can only be accessed by a PM, by the Prime Minister.
Yeah, it needs the Prime Minister's voice print. Prime Minister being Tom Hollander. Then they meet her at like Waterloo Station or something, and she actually says, "Come away with me." So that's the first.
Yeah, that's like third option. Come away with me.
They played fast and loose with the whole romance angle actually, because they said there are cuts of this film where there are kisses and things like that, and they never played right. And both actor, actress, and test audiences all felt that any attempt to put that in was kind of forced. So they've played it down, definitely. But that's your hint at it here, though.
That's one of the things I think what makes it work, because you don't really need any like physical sexiness on screen. You just have a connection, and that's it.
Yeah, that itself can be sexy.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, that could be anything. That could be like potential, or just we're just two of a kind.
It doesn't mean the fact that and they did come down on the line of no, they're colleagues or they're whatever. But that doesn't mean they always have to be that. In real life, people's relationships change sometimes.
Yeah.
People partner up with someone they may have worked with for a long time or something like that. So it works fine. But yeah, I'm just saying that they did have elements of this film where they did try to play up that romance angle. And the only bit that's really left is where she says, "Come away with me." But the whole team are there basically surrounding her. What is their goal here? What is their goal when they go to find Ilsa, knowing she's got nothing, effectively?
Probably to get information from the Syndicate, or to at least because I think Ethan probably wants to make sure that wants to protect her in some way, some capacity.
Okay.
I can't remember, but basically they go meet her, but it turns out the Syndicate actually takes Benji.
I mean, it's in storytelling, it's a distraction, so that they haven't got their eyes on Benji for a minute. And Benji gets basically kidnapped here by the Syndicate, by Lane.
So they now have to
unlock the box, unlock the red box. It's called, and so basically they need to go and get the Prime Minister, who's at Blenheim Palace.
Yeah, and of course
Hunley's arrives as well.
Turned up because Jeremy Renner's rang in, which Now at this point, does he do this without anyone knowing, or is this kind of, are we meant to believe that he did that? It kind of seems like it's all part of the plan, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's all part of the plan. Absolutely.
Because I think how this plays out is actually quite inspired. How like they managed to sort of not only get them off the hook with Hunley, but make the whole situation just turn around. They managed to get what they need, to get to like prove they're basically that they're innocent in front of Hunley, and incriminate the
MI6 guy.
Yeah, Attlee.
Very, very British name there.
Not Clement Attlee, I hasten to add.
Well, that's the first name you think of, Clement.
Yeah, that's the only Attlee that I know about.
But the way this plays out, I think it's actually really sort of like quite well done. It's also a bit of humour as well with the true serum, particularly the primate. I mean, like Tom Holland's comedic timing here is just great.
No, he's fantastic, isn't he? I think he's
your hand is very warm.
And then like the look that Jeremy Renner gives, he's like, got a very warm hand, right?
I love Tom Holland, but yeah, basically it turns out that Attlee is Ethan, isn't it?
He does a quite revealing and removes the mask.
Yeah,
the one mask that we see in this film.
And again, huge rewrites here.
Definitely. No, I think with these, especially with these last three films, I think it's a well-known trope of the TV series and of these films. They use a lot of masks, a lot of quite revealing moments. I'm going to eke out that phrase till the very end.
But there's hardly any in this film deliberately.
No, literally it's the one, and that was it. And I think now's the right time. I think otherwise it becomes distracting.
Well, you get those sequences like in Fallout where you see a possible playing out of the scenario. So you see Benji in a mask, but obviously it's just a possible might be.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said that they did whole sequences that explain different things that ended up getting cut. So where you've got Attlee saying to Hunley something like, "Last time we heard from you, you were hunting rogue agents in Morocco." Well, that's a whole sequence. He said that's an orphan line because that's a whole sequence we cut. So you can just tell. And there's a sequence. Forget the line, but there's a line in this that Jeremy Renner delivers which he shot later against like green screen or something like that, and they had to comp it in. So they're just making this up on the fly, really. And the whole Prime Minister thing was added late. So it's an incredible piece of almost guerrilla filmmaking.
Yeah, it works really well because you would think. I mean, one of the good things about McQuarrie and his on the fly writing is a lot of the time is you honestly could not tell. You think think it would all be like thought out from the start.
He said he always went with logic and story. He said, but Tom Cruise is always feelings, emotions, effect on audience, that sort of thing. And he said, I've learnt to be guided by that now. So they watch scenes and they listen to feedback, and if they don't work, they go. And it doesn't matter where they are in the process, they'll work out something else. So it's got to be a hard and stressful job making these films. Line where he says, he's the ultimate manifestation of destiny or something like that. He just made that up while he was on his way in one day. Yeah. And just said, well, we'll use that line. And he sort of pitched it to Tom, and Tom said, great. And they went with that. So it's incredible.
There's no person he cannot become.
Yeah, they just want this box unlocked so that they need to get Benji free. That's the whole point of this. So Benji is basically tied to a bomb, isn't he?
Yeah. They found him at a lovely cafe by the river.
Yeah.
Where is that cafe? I've never been there.
By the river.
And it's you have that eerie thing where Simon Pegg's reiterating what Samuel Lane's doing or talking to him.
This end scene is terrifying for me. I was literally just like, Arr! I remember seeing it at the cinema on literally edge of the seat moment. I think it's one of the most tense endings in the series ever. Brilliantly done, brilliantly acted and performed.
Yeah, he's talking through an earpiece to him. So Benji's having to repeat what he's told. He's got one of those lenses in as well.
And he's tied right up to a bomb, essentially. So tense on my life.
And it basically stops with about 0.19 of a second to go or something.
0.007 seconds to go.
Not quite.
But
literally 19 seconds to go, so literally down to the wire.
Yeah, because Ethan decides
another 3 clicks. I mean 7.
Because Lane gives an ultimatum, basically sort of like, give me what I want, I'll just kill you and Veggie. But don't, and this bomb will kill everyone here. So, but Ethan calls his bluff and says, and sort of blags to him and saying, look, I remembered
the disc is empty, and he said, well, I've memorised it all.
Yeah.
So if you kill me, that's it. Now, and they even call out the essential ludicrousness of that. You know, you're thinking, how would I have recalled all that? Well, only one way to find out.
Yeah.
I've memorised the whole data, and basically, he is. He basically gets the bomb disarmed and escapes, and then basically the chase is on, really, isn't it?
And it's a really good shot when he goes to stop it, because you sort of like stop it to see Ethan's face on the screen. Because he's viewing, and it's just like, I'm not sure if it's actually used in the title sequence as one of the flashing shots, but I felt like, that kind of should be. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those like kind of like very quick but kind of very striking shots. But yeah, there's so basically they disarm Benji. Benji gets out there, and Lane sort of like, kill the woman, bring me Hunt alive, and they basically just have a bit of a chase and a shootout.
Yeah, in a very old-fashioned Tower of London, around the Tower of London, basically, which gives you some idea where the cafe would have been. The way Ilsa kills that guy's a bit brutal, isn't it? With the knife.
Well, yes, got a bit of stab in the chest.
Yeah,
literally right in the heart.
But that's how she tends to fight like the big guy. She just like jumps on top of them.
There's another scene earlier on, isn't there, where she dispatches the flunky with in similar fashion.
Yeah. But she moves really, really well. Like even in Fallout, she kind of like
she's really swift.
Yeah,
she's quite light on her feet as well.
But it makes it work though as well. You know, she's having like a big fight with this guy who's like twice the size of her, but it makes it work.
She's much more nimble.
Yeah. So yeah, we have a really good sort of like chase scene. Got a really nice location in London. Summer Lane goes after Ethan and actually traps him, and it's just like will be caught by the IMF, and now he's in a box.
There's glass case of emotion.
You've been IMF'd.
You've been IMF'd. That's it, literally. It literally is a glass case of emotion, because he's like apoplectic at having been caught, or how he wants it to play out. He's literally just like.
There's a deleted scene where like Jeremy Renner and like Ving Rhames have been to B&Q that afternoon
and bought the glass case of emotion.
Bought the screens and all the rest of it. But yeah, that's the one thing he signed on.
You can do it if you're B&Q.
Sean Harris signed on the basis that you are going to kill me off, because he just didn't desperately want to do a franchise film. So he said, as long as you kill me off. And then he sort of went into the next one saying, well, as long as you kill me off, well.
Well.
I mean, he might not be back next time round, but.
He's not been killed off, though.
I know.
They'll show flashback footage, I'm sure.
Last scene in the boot of, not.
Last scene in the boot of car.
That Tom Cruise, he keeps hiring me. Why won't he let me die?
That's funny.
They're gassed and put into custody, and then they go back to the Senate, and they restore the IMF, and Hundley is now the new IMF secretary.
Yep, welcome to the
and
IMF.
He's like, hey!
I must find a clip.
He's all like, to sleep with a woman and to sleep with a man and lie to him. It's got all the training she needs.
Yeah. But yeah, this all just kind of feels right. It feels the right ending for the film. I will stop doing that joke now. But that's it. I don't know where. I can't remember. We don't finish on Ethan, which is unusual, and it is mentioned by Macquarie. So another reason for putting that sort of second title sequence, so you do see a bit of Ethan again as the film's ending. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's very stylish as well, isn't it?
Rogue Nation. It's not. It feels. I don't know. There's almost a strange effect from having all these different locations with different teams, different parts of the team in them, that it gives the film a scale it doesn't have, because it doesn't actually have as much to it as the last film. We've just sort of gone through that film it's quite straightforward. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm.
There's not a massive amount to it. As for final thoughts from me, it's not It's not as good as Ghost Protocol. I think I'm pretty sure now, having seen it today. I think it's more stylish. I think it's a prettier shot film. I think even some of the costume design, putting Rebecca Ferguson in is just a masterstroke. She's the best addition to the series to date.
Amazing.
Beyond putting Tom Cruise in it in the first place, obviously.
Was it everything that he can do? She can do. If not better.
It feels even lighter than Rogue Nation in that. Than Ghost Protocol in that it's got more humour in it than I can think of. Some of the set pieces are just very stylish. I don't think they're as exciting as Ghost Protocol was. So I just think, it's in line with the standard of this sort of second half of this series. We've got 3 really good films in a row, but I have to say, and I'm not going to add much more to it than that, of the 3, with Fallout still to come, but it reasonably fresh in my memory, this is the weakest of the 3.
Becca?
I think for me at the moment, they're just the 2 are on a par, definitely. I mean, they're both, different flavours. But yeah, for me together, they're kind of equal footing. But however, I am really looking forward to Fallout next week. I rank these 3 kind of very highly indeed. Yeah, it zips along really well. Even though there's like a minute difference, it still doesn't. The films are getting generally longer as we go along. Apart from this one, like a minute. It doesn't kind of feel longer. Nothing really drags. I really enjoyed the underwater sequence. Definitely. I'm really glad that we get to see more of Sean Harris. It's fantastic. He's one of the best villains that we've seen in the series, and I quite enjoy his work generally. I think he's a fantastic actor.
He does look like a lizard, though, doesn't he? That's the thing.
I think that's the part of his appeal. I was going to say, but his character is quite slimy.
That's why he's so sexy, Chris.
He's got the kind of slimy kind of look about him. Sorry, Sean, but his character is made up to look kind of very slick. It's typical kind of.
If he's cold-blooded, you wouldn't get too hot next to him in bed, would you?
Well, there we are. So it's very handy.
There you go.
Quite handy in his glass case of emotion. He doesn't overheat.
Yeah.
On a hot day.
Steam up.
But no, I thoroughly enjoyed this film, and yeah, I agree with you, Dave. Definitely, Rebecca Ferguson is a fantastic addition to this film. If they were going to be, say, like if they end the next film, that's my hand. If the next film would be the last one, and they said, right, we're going to do a spin-off now with Ilsa, I'd be like, right, be there in a heartbeat. She could 100% carry the film. Fantastic actress, definitely. Amazing addition to this film. She'd be like the ideal Bond girl in that she's equal to Bond. Like whatever Tom Cruise can do, she can do. No qualms, no question asked. Fantastic.
Well, I pretty much agree with both of what you said. I think out of the 3 newish ones, this is the weakest. Though that being said, I think it's only down to the fact that it just lacks a few things. I think the style and polish of it is really good. I like the energy that McQuarrie has brought to this. Obviously, we see things to come. I think if
most stylish Mission Impossible film, if we leave the first one out because that was its own thing.
Yeah.
But maybe most stylish Mission Impossible film, Chris.
Possibly, yeah. Definitely in terms of boldness, and it definitely had an energy to it. That
it's got a bit more swagger because Fallout's on quite a grimy color palette comparatively.
Yeah, I mean, Fallout is kind of a little bit as if Nolan light. I don't mean that as a kind of like obviously in a derogatory.
Well, we'll talk about it next week. He tried to make it look like it was
a different filmmaker.
A different filmmaker, and so it wasn't going to be. This is the bold globe-trotting one of the 2.
Yeah, and this is like very much. It feels like a spy film. I think it's very. I think it brings. I think it builds an excitement of what is to come. I remember walking out thinking, you know what? I think I was only mildly disappointed, though happy with what I was shown, and I want more from the series. So it definitely left me hungry for more. And I was like, yeah, okay, roll on 6, because I'll be if you give me more of this type of thing, I'll be happy. So in a way, it kind of did do its job.
It is difficult because the Bond series has always done this of like trying to up the ante every time, and you end up in a silly place. If you are literally trying to outdo the Burj Khalifa every time, which I suppose the plane stunt sort of is, but it's not really. Not as a sequence, anyway. As a stunt, maybe, but not as a real ballsy sequence. But where do you go from there? There are no taller buildings than that. So do you go to space? Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And that's how we end up in a really silly position. So in some respects, not having anything that directly competes with that's not a bad idea. And just putting all the sort of effort into look and feel. It's still got stunts. I mean, it's still got the car work in this is really good. But I think even with that, we've got better next week.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there's effectively similar next week, a car and bike sequence sort of back to back with each other, and they're better than this. But they're different. The car sequence is similar, but it's on a different sort of, because that's in Paris. And of course, the bike bit's a bit more urban as well, whereas this one, it was all mountain roads, a bit like in 2. So they have managed to vary it. I think your biggest worry is to keep trying to top the previous one. And 3 films now of this style, if you like, and they haven't just done that. Even though there is something in every film where you go, oh my God, he's doing that. But I mean, Fallout might be the best film of the series. We'll find out next week. But there's nothing in it that matches the Burj Khalifa, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it just means that that was that film. This is this film. Yeah, they offer 2 different things. Though that being said, Dave, I don't feel I know enough about this film.
Well, yeah, because I keep on about the Burj Khalifa. So Becca making me all well informed a couple of weeks ago. I'm still living off that, really.
Yeah.
What I'm hoping is that in future series, I can keep banging on about something from this film to really dazzle our listeners. But that's not going to work at the moment because I'm fucking clueless, Chris. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think I need more information of some kind.
More information? So what, like a pamphlet?
Yeah, something with like...
Do you think that would work as a section on a podcast? We quietly sit and read a pamphlet each.
No.
Becca, you've interjected there. Do you have a better idea than Chris and I quietly reading a pamphlet? That's assuming somebody creates
about the
a
Burj
pamphlet.
Khalifa?
Yeah.
Or you could go away and listen to Turandot, Nessun Dorma, or try to rework it so it's not so offensive. Anyway, but no, it is a classic opera. Anyway, yes, so I've got some fun facts about Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. I wasn't quite sure what to focus my facts on. I thought, should I do facts about opera? Should I do facts about Turandot? Should I do facts about Puccini? Or should I just do facts about this film? So you get a mishmash. So other great operas involving...
Well, mishmashes with fun facts, Becca.
So it's all a mishmash. Yeah, some other movies that include fantastic opera scenes, famously, include La Traviata in Pretty Woman, which is a very iconic scene. Barbara of Seville in Hopscotch, where he sings around basically kind of doing a karaoke version of the Barbara of Seville. Andrea Chenier appears in the background in the iconic scene in Philadelphia, and also obviously famously in Shawshank Redemption. We hear snippets from Marriage of Figaro, which just plays out to the whole prison yard in what's a really beautiful scene. Fun fact number 2: this is probably like the first Mission Impossible movie not to feature a scene where a character is descended on a rope and just hangs there to kind of do some infiltration work, for example. So yeah, we don't see that kind of scene. Well, Tom Cruise does a big drop into the Taurus, but apart from that, we don't see the kind of famous air quotes jump and hang stunt in this film for the first time in the series. If they wanted to do
something different with that, they could like combine it with a wedgie.
Yes, a giant epic wedgie.
Yeah, someone descends and just gets hung by their pants.
But Tom Cruise speaks like this for the rest of the film. It's so painful.
Yeah. Just an idea. I am available for script writing help.
Yes. I'll say, they kind of do it with the descent into the Taurus, but it's not quite the same. Fun fact number 3: the opening stunt with the A400M Airbus Atlas that we just discussed was filmed at RAF Wittering in Cambridgeshire. Tom Cruise obviously did the stunt himself, with only 2 safety harnesses, and with the plane flying 500 feet up in the air. And also apparently there was an interview I was reading that the grey suit that he wears is a reference to North by Northwest. Cary Grant's character wears a similar suit, with a scene also involving an airplane. Obviously, you've got the famous crop dusting scene as well, so it could be a callback to that, perhaps. But I think that's
Perhaps
quite
you
interesting.
could dust some crops in the next film.
Quick,
We could
email
have
the
some
writers, quick.
Extreme gardening.
Let's tweet McQuarrie. I'm sure he could follow us, no problem.
Yeah.
I have to get him on. Although I hope he doesn't cop it.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll do that, Becca. It's like, we'll just
He's
tweet
got time, it's fine. He's not busy.
Oi, McQuarrie, come on, chat to us. Come. Did Sonic
Jump
3
into
hours of
questions,
Empire.
see if he answers.
You could do like an hour of us, come on.
Yeah, be fine. He's not doing anything right now.
Yeah, but we're way less focused than the Empire podcast. We should be at least 4 times as long. But we might only talk about Mission Impossible for some of that.
But
and
we're more
films
fun.
Generally.
So, Chris, tell me, is Tom Cruise really gay?
I might spend some of the rest of the time discussing with him how he looks like he could be a character in the Beano or something.
In the Beano. Oh dear.
Yeah, he's not coming on the show, is he?
No, he's not.
He'll be like, what the fuck's a Beano?
Well, we'd send him a copy.
He
We're quite
might know
happy
about
to-
Beano, I'm sure. Then if he does come on, obviously we can get Chris Stewart on. You'll be on there, Chris. And Bristol McQuarrie. So it'll be the Chris show.
Yeah.
Chris talking to Chris about Chris.
And that could be any number of combinations of different Chris's.
Specifically,
So, like, would you want me to talk about the Mission Impossible series? No, can you talk about Chris Evans?
Yeah.
Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah. And we do mean Don't Forget Your Toothbrush. So, have you ever seen Don't Forget Your Toothbrush?
That was a great show.
Yeah, I know. He's going to be remembered for TFI Friday, which is nowhere near as good.
No, TFI was legendary, but yeah, Don't Forget Toothbrush
Big
was
Breakfast,
hilarious.
surely.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Wow. Yeah.
Lots of love for that show, specifically Zig and Zag.
That joke
Yeah.
didn't wear itself out after a week, did it?
No. I bought a lot of their merch though, it was quite sad. Yeah, fun fact number 4, Tom Cruise trained with diving specialist Kurt Crack, who has a great name. To basically teach him how to hold his breath for 6 minutes. And the underwater scene, as you mentioned earlier, was done without any takes, very little, no cuts at all, to make it more tense.
I wish that guy had been around a few years ago to join a project team I was running, because I already had someone called Mark Sachs and someone called Chris Back.
Oh,
On the team.
would've got the trio.
So I would have had Back, Sachs, and Crack.
That sounds like a folk group, really. Doesn't it?
there's a folk trio right there. Did
Yeah.
you have somebody called Butler?
Back, Sachs, and Crack, and they all look like Mulligan and O'Hare.
That's probably not his real name, but I think if you call Kurt Crack, that's a
I'm
fantastic
gonna
name.
have to post a Mulligan and O'Hare sketch now on our Facebook page because
Let's go back up.
so many people aren't going to know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up in a minute.
You remember Mulligan O'Hare? It was
Oh
Vic
yeah,
Vaughn.
yeah, I misheard you. Sorry. Yes, that's so funny. Oh yeah, it's literally something out of that kind of stable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
dear.
yeah, I had Back and Sack, but
But he just needed the crack.
not Crack.
Not
But he-
quite Trevor and Simon though, is it? With swinging your
But he-
pants.
Yeah, he was off teaching diving to Tom Cruise. Emphasis my own.
And then my final fun fact. Obviously, Tom Cruise was slated to appear in as Napoleon Solo in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., but dropped out to make this film. His replacement would be young Henry Cavill, who would also appear in Fallout. So yeah, I think that's quite interesting how the two kind of were meant to play the same roles but swapped and ended up starring next to each other. With that controversial moustache.
I'm just imagining him in like a wildly oversized Superman outfit. Yeah, rolled up at the ankles.
Too
Yeah.
big.
We see Henry Cavill next week. He's in he's in the film that's responsible for indirectly for the poor CG work on his top lip.
That
in
controversial
Justice League.
beard.
Yeah, Macquarie does talk about that as well, actually. I haven't re-listened to the Fallout ones yet, but he does talk about that. Because he said we really did try to accommodate them, but there just comes a point where you can't, because it would have looked bad for either. If anyone listening hasn't seen Justice League, and judging by its gross, a few of you probably haven't. The Henry Cavill's lip looks weird. It looks a bit like John Major.
Oh God!
John Major had a slightly oversized, slightly bulbous top lip, and so's Henry Cavill.
I suppose if you look at his spitting image dummy, that's kind of where a lot of it comes from, isn't it? I guess.
Isn't it weird that if you look at John Major now, he looks even more like a spitting image dummy?
He does. He's even more grey. Every time he's on TV or he's mentioned, you're only so boring. I just find it so boring.
Some peas, Norma.
I like some peas.
What I love is they had the character obsessed with Virginia Bottomley.
Yeah.
And of course, it wasn't common knowledge he'd had Edwina Curry.
Well, this is it exactly.
They didn't realise how they weren't that far away.
Yeah.
No, they were quite close, weren't they? So it was very clever back in the day.
So anyway, we've worked out our forward schedule before we go into social media and that. So we got the rest of this year sorted more or less. So we're going to finish this series next week. There's going to be Bond commentaries in between. The other thing we'll stop for is we will do a weekend of release review of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the new Quentin Tarantino film. That'll be out the week after. We do RoboCop when we finish this. So the 3 original films from the late 80s and early 90s and the remake from 2014, or the reboot, I suppose, which didn't go too well. Then we're going to do... What's next? Do we go straight onto the Terminator from that, don't we?
I think so.
We go straight onto the Terminator. Then we'll do John Wick. And then we will do the Fast and Furious franchise to take us into next year, when we will do Spider-Man. And that's all we're going to announce for now. Oh, I say that's all we're going to announce for now. I did actually announce a bit further on earlier. From that, we go to Lethal Weapon and then Planet of the Apes. And that is all we've announced for now. So that'll take us through probably about spring of next year.
Good stuff. So, and also we got the fill-in ones for Bond as well, whenever that gets released. That'll be probably around that time. We might do a few catch up with not Marvel.
I mean, with Bond, it'll likely be released on a Wednesday. So what we'll likely do is watch it a couple of times and record on the Friday or something like that.
Yeah,
something like that. So you'll get it very, very close to release. Please be good. Please be good. That's all we want. Just a decent fucking Bond film. That's all we want. We don't want a lot.
And if not, we'll just monster it and get an insane show out of it.
Yeah. I think it's very rare I get captured by hype. Very rare indeed. And in fact, Spectre is one of 3 or 4 times it's happened to me in my entire life. Even with Bond films, even where I'm trying to convince myself I like it, if it's not that good, it would come out in the review. So I'm expecting to be a bit more reliable on it next time, to be fair. But it just concerns me, because I don't know if the filmmakers remember what works about their own series now. But we'll see.
Yeah, it depends when we've got a good director on board, whether it works or not.
Yeah,
we can only see.
And the fan base is all splintered as well, because they're getting old now and don't really know what they want. Hence, they announce a new composer and people are up in arms because it's not David Arnold. A lot of the fan base just wants cinematic comfort food. Hence the fuss in the last couple of days about Lashana Lynch being a 007 character.
Yeah, it's a lot of people not reading the headlines though, but
yeah. Or they're just reading the headline.
Yeah, which is kind of like the problem. But that article did read a bit more like it baited that a little bit. It's just that is what happens, and obviously internet. No one is nice on the internet. Let's face it.
Any one of you out there with jobs, when you leave that job, they'll likely replace you with somebody. That's how it works. They're not going to leave 007 open forever. So that's how it will work. He's been out of the service for about 4.5 years by the time that film's released.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's going to get back his original number, which was 7777.
Well, that wasn't his original number, but he was given that number.
So, yeah, that's the number he was assigned before 007.
It will probably be like this. It will be like Bond's retired. He meets the new 00 at some point, or the new 007. Apparently, he comes on to her according to the article, and she brushes him off. Though that doesn't really make sense given the fact that he's
that bit. Yeah, that doesn't.
And Ana de Armas is in it.
Yeah.
So that seems to be set up more as the love interest, but we'll see.
But yeah, it would be she'll be killed off, and then Bond takes up the 007 mantle again, or it'd be Bond, Bond remains retired, and then this would be one of the two.
Or she'll shift along one. It'll be no, you had the honour. It's your number. I was honoured to carry it. I'm happy to shift along. Whatever. He will end the film if they don't literally retire this Bond and reboot. If they carry on as they always did with Bond films, where it ends ready for someone else to take it up, or Daniel Craig to do another one, or whatever they decide to do, then he will end the film as 007. I just don't see the fucking issue, to be honest with you.
No, it'll be that. It'll be either another reboot, or he will take up the mantle again, and then it'll be business as usual.
Yeah,
that's what it'll be.
But there are people out there, even those that have read it, are like, "Oh, they're just doing a dry run for her to take over." It's
Possibly.
just like,
I mean, look, yeah. I mean, apparently that's how it reads, but it's again,
it's not going to be that.
No, it's not. It's not.
Remember, I've got problems with those producers, but they come from a family who's been there since the inception of it. James Bond is the draw. They're not going to do a dry run to replace it with a different person called 007. That doesn't make any commercial sense. Bear in mind, this is the only property they really have. They're just not. They'd be mental.
And you're right. I mean, like that's the thing you forget. I mean, there's people who I mean, I've seen opinions that sort of say, it's great the fact they're replacing the passing on the mantle to him. I much prefer to see like a black female carried on the role. It's like no, the role James Bond is the appeal. It isn't the 007 thing, or that could be any other spy film. It's James Bond. You know, if they did do it, you're right. It would be a complete mistake. It will be like it will be goodbye franchise or reboot again. But
the only worry I've got is the storytelling idea that if you're gonna if Bond retires. And we've established as far back as Thunderball that unlike the books where there's only about 3 00s, there were 9 of them. So you have to assume in that queue that was 001 to 009, right? So that's the section. Although even it's ambiguous there because in dialogue it's every 00 man in Europe. So, are there more elsewhere? But let's just take that as read that there were 9 00s in that section, okay? 001 to 009. If that's the case, 007 retires... somebody else becomes 007. It's a job, just like me leaving my job.
And that's what it'll be.
Now, if somebody else is in the job, for storytelling purposes, for 2 reasons. Firstly, Mallory was always trying to modernise the section. And also, along with Skyfall, they're always trying to pick Bond as a little bit of an out-of-date dinosaur anyway. The whole idea that he comes back to somebody who is very different to him in the role makes some kind of sense.
Yeah.
What worries me is will it lead to a load of Bond arguing his place in the world again?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that bothers me. But the casting of her in that role and there being another 007 doesn't in and of itself worry me at all.
No. I mean, look, I think it would have played better, and that's why I'll disagree with Eon or whoever who decided to announce this thing. I think it would have played better had we just known she's a female spy, and then as we're watching the film, it gets revealed, she's 007. That would have been a cool thing. So when it would have played out in the film, and everyone would have gone, "Oh, fine," because we know what it is when we're watching it.
Would you have him say, "Send in 007," and in she walks,
or something like that, or whatever?
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah, I'm not saying exactly how it'll play, but it's like it'll be revealed to us as we're watching the film as a surprise. It'll be like, oh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that would play better. It'll be like a lot of this bullshit headlines and
Bond
kind of
has
thing.
had a different code number, and in the continuation novels, in the Horowitz number, in the Horowitz prequel, 007 dies at the start of the fucking book.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He is a replacement for another 007. Somebody had it before him. Somebody will have it after him.
I know, yeah.
But obviously there is no after him in Bond continuity because it's a shifting timeline. Effectively. There'll always be a Bond and Bond will always be 007. But for the sake of this story, we've got to get him back into service. So if he returns to the service, you need to see what's happened to the service in his absence.
Definitely.
Of all the fucking dog whistle bollocks you see on the internet, this is the one I just don't get. This is just literally like, I thought people could read better than this.
Yeah, I know, but no, everyone reads headlines, and no one really reads stories. They're just going to get outraged by a headline.
But yeah, I'm just reading SJW Agenda, and it's like, fuck me, you really just don't want any diversity, do you? Fucking hell.
Oh god.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's the divided nature of the thing. You know, it's obviously, you know, it plays things to different people. The article itself will play to rattle the cages of few. Some people will embrace it. Like I've read plenty of people who generally embrace it as if it is she is taking over. Do you know what I mean?
I wonder if she'll fuck everything that moves as well.
Possibly, I hope so.
Absolutely jammed up on penicillin.
It's like, well, I thought that's what Double did. I thought it was supposed to just.
I doubt he'll remember me. Remind him. Then let him pump you thoroughly. No, just
I was pumped. for information.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, they would be very careful about diluting the brand anyway. So I doubt they wouldn't even spin it off into a TV show or anything. This woman is there to play a part in this film. You can never be 100% certain because we've gone into Bond films before and seen silly decisions made. But I can be 95% sure this is just nothing to worry about whatsoever. And providing
it's too early to start getting like our panties.
If they don't kill off or retire this Bond, he will end the film as 007.
Yeah,
with or without her alive.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely. It'll be one of those things,
but as long as it doesn't lead into a load of navel gazing about his old methods still being relevant and all that, that's fine.
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit late in the day that for now. You know, I think we just.
You can imagine him using new modern methods, and he just storms in and goes, "No, you should just get pissed and shag around." That's what you should do. Gets brilliant results.
Yeah, I mean that could work. Be like, almost have like a Bond buddy movie where he's up against, his partner is 007, and he's that would have been an odd thing.
She's on the computer and using high-tech methods, and he's just like banging people.
Information.
She's way ahead of you there.
It's like, it's trying to be more subtle. He just goes more direct. No, shoots him in the leg.
Once she's trying to hack into their bank accounts, he strolls back in having shagged them, like smelling his fingers and stuff. I could write that, and I doubt no one would ever complain about SJW bollocks, I promise.
I'd be delighted in that.
Can you imagine if I was announced? Can you imagine if all this time I just kept it quiet from you? We're just having a script polish from James Bond from Do You Expect Us to Talk? Here's an example of some of his work, and they just play like the Honor Blackman joke or something.
Which no one knows.
That's the kind of, well, it would be revealed, wouldn't it? Actually, it doesn't exist recorded now because you edited it.
It would be. It would be subtext. It would be text.
Text. That's all of the subtext.
It wouldn't be subtext. Text. It would just be text.
I forgot. I'm amazed you remember I said that. What was it you said? Dave, why are there blowjobs in every scene? No, it wouldn't be that bad.
Nearly, though.
Getting there.
Nearly. Social media, folks.
Oh, you can find me on the cesspool that is Twitter on cinematronix.co.uk. You can also find all the episodes on on cinematronix.co.uk, and all the old episodes are on Google, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Well, anyway, you can find it all on there.
iPod, Stitcher.
To be honest, we're not sure because we haven't looked. You know, we just know it goes a lot.
No, but I googled it about a week or so ago. It's still there. But if look, just Google us, you'll find us, and you know you find us on you'll find us on any sort of podcast search apps. You'll be there. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Expect Us to Talk, and you can find us on Facebook. Expect Us to Talk, and also the same on YouTube and iTunes. Type in "Do you expect us to talk?" You can find us there. And if you want, you can drop us an email, expectustalk@gmail.com.
Excellent. And you can find me at the Pasty Kid 1976 on Twitter. I think we're going to finish on a high, actually, because we've got something a bit special next week, which means Becca.
Do you expect us to talk or return with our review of Mission Impossible Fallout?